Jiang stared at the translucent status panel floating before him, bearing only a solitary line of text. Basic disassembly, F tier. Can dismantle black iron tier gear. Success rate, 35. Upon successful disassembly, material recovery rate ranges from 27 to 42 at maximum. He blinked once, and the panel faded away. Another blink brought it back, yet its content had completely altered. Universal extraction, law tier. Dismantle items of any tier with a 100 success rate and full material recovery. Permanent stat bonuses are granted with every successful extraction. He repeated the motion several times to confirm the phenomenon. One undeniable truth settled in his mind. 16 years after transmigrating into this world, his golden finger had finally arrived. Am I dreaming? Jiang reflexively pinched what he thought was his chubby friend Zhang Hao's thigh. The skin felt sleek, soft, and faintly cool to the touch. Something was off. He had meant to pinch Zhang Hao, so why was the texture so strange? A sharp gasp sounded right beside him. Jiang whipped his head around, still murmuring. When did your skin get this smooth, you fat? His words died in his throat the instant he laid eyes on the person before him. A girl with breathtaking features stood there, her cheeks flushed crimson, wide, beautiful eyes blazing with shock and anger. Ling Aoshuang, the school's most admired beauty, an awakened wielder of S-tier combat talent, destined to grow into an unparalleled powerhouse in the future. And his hand was pressed firmly against her pale, soft thigh. Silence hung thick in the air for a split second. Ling Aoshuang glanced down at his misplaced hand, then lifted her gaze back to him, her lips trembling slightly. You pinched me? It's not what it looks like. I didn't mean to. Jiang pulled his hand back in a flustered rush, incoherent with embarrassment. Ling Aoshuang bit her lower lip, overwhelmed by shame and irritation. She shot him a furious glare before spinning on her heel and hurrying away. Jiang stood rooted to the spot, the faint silky cool sensation still lingering on his palm. Moments later, a stocky figure stumbled over out of breath. Zhang Hao clutched 2 ice pops in one hand and clamped another between his teeth. He stared blankly at Ling Aoshuang's retreating figure, oblivious to his melting ice pop. Holy hell! He gulped down the melted treat in 2 bites, spraying spittle across Jiang's face. You just grabbed Ling the class president's leg? Are you insane? Would you believe me if I said it was an accident? Not a single word. Zhang Hao looked utterly aggrieved. I stepped away for 2 minutes to buy ice pops, and you pulled this reckless stunt. How did it feel? Spill it now. Jiang glanced nervously toward the empty corridor where Ling Aoshuang had vanished. He bit into his ice pop, a faint amused smirk tugging at his lips. Just like this ice pop, smooth, cool, and refreshing. You're unbelievable. Zhang Hao groaned in heartfelt despair. Jiang rolled his eyes. Quit being so dramatic. It was just an accidental brush against her leg. Come on now. You're nothing but a lowly disassembler. Don't delude yourself into thinking you could ever have any special connection with her. Zhang Hao scoffed. Sure, you're far better than me, you useless enhancer, Jiang retorted. The pair sighed heavily in unison. Disassemblers and enhancers were both classified as low-rank livelihood professions within the source realm. This did not mean the occupations themselves were weak. Top-tier disassemblers and enhancers were irreplaceable core members of any combat squad, providing vital support for teammates with generous compensation packages. The problem lay in sheer oversaturation. These 2 professions had more practitioners than stray dogs wandering the streets. Leveling up required astronomical resources in the early stages, resources ordinary families could never afford. Take disassemblers as an example. Advancing from basic to primary required dismantling 100 black iron weapons and armors. Primary to intermediate demanded 1,000 bronze pieces of equipment, while intermediate to high tier called for 10,000 silver-grade gears. Even the shoddiest black iron gear sold for several thousand credits, equivalent to an average household's entire monthly income. Without reaching high tier, a disassembler's material recovery efficiency would always lag behind others. Squads would always pick seasoned, high-level specialists over inexperienced rookies like him. With no wealth, connections, or influential family backing, no one would invest resources to nurture his growth. Jiang came from a working-class household. His father had once been a combatant, yet a permanent battle injury forced him into manual mining within the source realm to support the family. His mother worked as a common tailor. Combined monthly earnings for his parents barely topped 3,000 credits, keeping the family afloat with great difficulty. Zhang Hao's family faced identical financial hardships. Following the old saying that poverty would not persist through 3 generations, Both the Jiang and Zhang bloodlines were destined to stagnate entirely within their generation. Sigh. Zhang Hao let out a gloomy breath. Word has it Ling Aoshuang awakened the city's top S-tier combat talent. She'll undoubtedly become the partner of some supreme powerhouse someday. We'll probably never get the chance to exchange another word with her ever again. He clenched his jaw immediately afterward. You got absurdly lucky touching the future powerhouse's leg. If I were that powerhouse, I'd hunt you down for this disrespect. Chuan Jiang let out a helpless laugh. No true top-tier warrior would be this petty. Enough of that. Zhang Hao mumbled around his popsicle stick. My dad said he can pull strings to get me a job at the scrap recovery yard. I'll ask him to put in a good word for you too. The scrap recovery yard bulk processed discarded and broken equipment. While it was seen as a garbage dump to regular people, it served as the perfect training ground for disassemblers and enhancers. Countless legendary masters of these two trades got their start working there. Chuan Jiang clapped his friend on the shoulder with a half-joking tone. For this favor alone, once I ascend to eternal status and become an emperor of heaven, I'll definitely drag you along for the ride. Sure thing. Zhang Hao did not even bother refuting such wild fantasy. The sky had darkened by the time Chuan Jiang returned home. His parents were still logged out of the source realm, leaving the apartment quiet and cold. He tossed his school bag onto the sofa, then sat formally before the coffee table and drew a deep breath. He blinked his eyes, and the translucent panel materialized once more. Universal extraction, law tier. Dismantle items of any tier with a 100 success rate and full material recovery. Permanent stat bonuses are granted with every successful extraction. Good, so this isn't a dream. Chuan Jiang nodded in satisfaction before pondering a critical issue. How should he explain this to his parents? It was not that he distrusted his family, but explaining such an ability would be unnecessarily complicated. A law tier talent? No such rank had ever been recorded in the Federation's entire history. If word spread, a 16-year-old boy possessing such an overpowered ability would instantly draw the obsessive attention of powerful factions. At best, he would be detained for interrogation. At worst, subjected to forced vivisection. There was no telling if others had discovered methods to extract talents from living hosts. If such technology existed, his extraordinary power would bring catastrophic ruin upon his entire family rather than good fortune. I'll keep a low profile and grow strong in secret for now. Chuan Jiang muttered to himself. I'll just tell them I have an F-tier talent. No one expects great things from me anyway, so my parents will accept it easily. Around 7 o'clock in the evening, movement came from his mother's bedroom. The door swung open, and Xiaolan Wang stepped out rubbing her stiff shoulders. She worked as a primary tailor, stuck at her current tier due to a complete lack of upgrade resources. She spent her days crafting low-grade leather armor within the source realm for meager pay. She headed toward the kitchen and spotted Chuan Jiang watching television in the living room. Holding back the question on her lips, she asked softly, "What would you like for dinner tonight, son?" Chuan Jiang turned his head. Cabbage stewed with vermicelli noodles. Xiaolan Wang studied his calm expression, relieved to see no trace of dejection or disappointment on his face. All right, I'll fry a plate of eggs to go with it too. Has Dad gotten off work yet? Chuan Jiang asked. He refuses to log off until dusk every single day, his mother sighed. Stubborn as a mule, never cares about his worn-out lower back. Mid-conversation, the front door lock clicked open. Mingyuan Zhang walked out from his personal room. His frame was slightly hunched, his hair streaked with gray, and permanent exhaustion etched deep into his facial features. Xiaolan Wang looked on in surprise. What's gotten into you? You're home hours earlier than usual today. Today is our son's talent awakening day. Of course I'd come back early to check on him, Mingyuan replied. Xiaolan tapped her spatula against the pot, shooting him a reproachful glare. They had agreed not to bring up the matter to spare the boy stress. Neither parent knew what talent Chuan Jiang had awakened, yet an unbreakable law governed talent inheritance across the source realm, bloodline degradation. Two A-tier awakened individuals would rarely produce another A-tier offspring. Most children inherited B-tier or even C-tier talents. Mingyuan was an E-tier warrior, while Xiaolan held an E-tier tailor talent. Logically speaking, their son was almost guaranteed to awaken an F-tier ability with no room for exceptions. For this reason, Xiaolan had already braced herself for the worst before asking. Mingyuan paid little mind to the potential low rank, addressing his son gently. No need to be upset no matter what you got. Just tell me what talent awakened for you. Xiaolan froze mid-chore, staring at Chuan Jiang with nervous anticipation. Chuan Jiang steeled his tone and answered. It's an F-tier disassembler. A disassembler? Worry clouded Xiaolan's brows instantly. Mingyuan fell silent for a second before forcing a reassuring smile. This isn't bad news at all. It's a stable livelihood profession, far better than my low-grade combat class. When my body can no longer fight, I'm left with mining work that doesn't even earn as much as professional miners. He's right, Shilon quickly echoed. Disassemblers can build a solid living over time. I'll save up money bit by bit to buy a few black iron gears for you to practice your craft. A sharp twinge of guilt stabbed Chuanzhang's chest. He knew full well their household finances could barely scrape by. Purchasing several black iron items would cost his parents months of combined wages. Yet he could not reveal his true law-tier ability. His ability let him dismantle equipment flawlessly with total material recovery, enough wealth to lift his whole family out of poverty with just a handful of scrapped gears. Enough moping around. Mingyuan gestured toward his wife. Cook an extra dish tonight. This is a milestone worth celebrating. Let me help you cook, Mom, Chuanzhang offered. His mother gently pushed him out of the kitchen. This is your special day. Rest well and conserve your energy for your first entry into the Source Realm tomorrow. Mingyuan walked over to the sofa and flipped through TV channels until he landed on a Source Realm news broadcast. The anchor was reporting statistics showing awakened individuals' overall quality had risen 3% compared to last year's cohort. Uninterested in the broadcast, Chuanzhang mulled over visiting the trading market the next morning to purchase discarded equipment for his first test run of his ability. Mingyuan suddenly broke the silence. Chuan, yeah? Don't let the disassembler rank weigh too heavily on your shoulders. Mingyuan kept his gaze fixed on the television screen, his tone casual. I may not amount to much, but I still have a few old connections from my warrior days. Chuanzhang tilted his head toward his father. Mingyuan paused to pick his words carefully. Do you remember me telling you I saved a man's life back when I was still active in combat parties? I think I have a vague memory of that. That man now leads a prominent combat squad. A quiet flicker of pride softened Ming Yuan's blank expression. Have you heard of the Blazing Flame Squad? Chuanzhang's eyes widened in shock. The Blazing Flame Squad was a well-renowned A-tier combat force based in Tianyuan City. Its commander was a 5th-order powerhouse rumored to be on the verge of breaking through to 6th-order status, a highly influential figure across the entire city. You saved the squad leader's life? Back before he grew powerful. We ran into a deadly trap in a dungeon instance, and I took a blade meant for him. Mingyuan recounted the story nonchalantly. After he rose to prominence, he repeatedly offered to repay the life debt, but I always turned him down. Favors are finite resources that should only be spent when truly necessary. And now is that necessary moment. Mingyuan finally turned to face his son, his gaze earnest and sincere. His daughter Su Yao awakened an A-tier combat talent this year, same as you. She formed her own team and still has an open spot for a disassembler. You're planning to get me into her team? Chuanzhang asked. That's exactly what I intend to do, Mingyuan affirmed. Joining the Blazing Flame Squad under Su Yao's leadership will secure you a stable career. You won't ever be forced into grueling mining labor like your old man. Chuanzhang stayed quiet, not out of reluctance, but from a surge of realization. His father had hoarded this life debt for years, refusing to cash it in for personal gain, waiting specifically for the day his son awakened a talent, sacrificing his most precious bargaining chip to pave a safer path for him. Don't burden yourself with unnecessary pressure. Mingyuan mistook his silence for hesitation. Disassemblers serve a vital functional role in teams. You won't be a dead weight by any means. Besides, backing from an official combat squad puts you leagues above freelance disassemblers with no institutional support. Chuanzhang parted his lips, tempted to say he needed no external backing, for his own ability made him self-sufficient. Yet the line sounded overly pretentious, and his father would never believe such a claim anyway. He simply nodded his head. I'll go. Visible relief washed over Ming Yuan's face as he smiled and patted his son's shoulder. That's my boy. Go help your mother bring out the food. You're an adult now following your awakening. Your old man and I will share a drink tonight. The warm aroma of cabbage vermicelli stew and pan-fried eggs drifted out from the kitchen. Early the next morning, Chuanzhang touched the unique imprint etched on his forearm and mentally synced his consciousness with the Source Realm. When he opened his eyes again, he stood within Tianyuan City's central plaza. The main city stretched far beyond what he had imagined, lined with towering buildings and swarms of bustling people. Mounted riders soared across the sky on flying beasts, leaving glowing trails in their wake. Chuanzhang spun a full 360 degrees, unable to utter anything besides quiet amazement. Before leaving home, his father had given him coordinates leading to the Bamboo Lane district in the eastern quarter of the city. Chuanzhang spent 20 minutes asking for directions plus another 10 minutes getting lost, finally locating his destination at the end of a quiet alley. A 3-story building marked with a blazing flame emblem, the official banner of the Blazing Flame Squad. A teenage girl clad in leather armor stood guard by the entrance, polishing a long blade in her hands. She looked up at Chuan Jiang with a blank expression. "Who are you looking for?" "I'm here to report for duty. I need to find Su Yao." "You must be Chuan Jiang?" "That's correct." The girl sized him up and down with a knowing look before stepping aside to gesture him inside. "Head upstairs. The captain is in the second-floor meeting room." Chuan Jiang climbed the stairs and turned into a modest conference room, immediately spotting a girl seated by the window. She possessed delicate, fair features, dressed in a set of dark crimson lightweight armor with her long hair tied into a neat high ponytail, emanating a sharp, capable aura. A cup of tea rested before her as she reviewed documents. Lifting her head only once, she heard his footsteps. "Su Yao, a B-tier mage and daughter of Blazing Flame Squad Commander Su Lai." Chuan Jiang put on his friendliest smile. "Hello, I'm Chuan Jiang. My father is Minuan Jiang," he mentioned. "I already know who you are." Su Yao cut him off with a neutral tone. She set her documents down on the table and studied him in silence for 2 seconds before speaking candidly. "My father owes your father a life-saving debt we intend to repay honorably. I will not turn you away from the team." Chuan Jiang's smile stiffened briefly before he regained his composure. Su Yao continued bluntly. "I formed this team for genuine dungeon expeditions, not casual pastime. Every member must pull their weight. I cannot afford to let your presence drag down the rest of the team's progress." Her words were brutally straightforward, bordering on harsh, yet Chuan Jiang felt no anger. He recognized the truth behind her statement. An F-tier disassembler would naturally be seen as a liability within a team led by an A-tier awakened warrior. "I understand fully," Chuan Jiang nodded sincerely. "I'll work hard to prove my worth." Su Yao scrutinized his facial expression, searching for hidden resentment or false politeness, yet found nothing of the sort. She gave a slight nod and stood up. "Very well, that settles it. Stay within the regiment for now. Go ask the veteran members whenever you run into something you don't understand." She turned to leave right after speaking, yet paused by the door as if something had just crossed her mind. "One more thing." She fished several items out of the storage pouch fastened to her waist and tossed them casually onto the table, producing a clattering racket. Jiang Chuan glanced down at the pile of gear laid out before him. To be precise, these were plain white-tier equipment, not even qualifying for black iron grade. A chipped longsword, cracked leather gauntlets, warped bracers, more than a dozen pieces in total. All worthless scrap that no one would bother picking up off the ground. "These are leftover training supplies from our squad," Su Yao explained. "They're meant for decomposers to practice on. You wouldn't be able to process higher-grade materials anyway, so start practicing with these." Jiang Chuan froze for a moment. Truth be told, he'd figured Su Yao would simply leave him to his own devices with zero support, never expecting her to source practice materials for him. Low-grade as these scraps were, her gesture was well-intentioned all the same. "Thanks a lot." Jiang Chuan spoke earnestly. Su Yao said nothing further and walked away. The sound of her footsteps faded down the corridor, before Jiang Chuan dragged his gaze away, fixing his eyes on the heap of broken junk on the table. White-tier gear technically held no official quality rating at all. Each piece would sell for barely a few dozen credits on the open market, and finding a buyer was far from guaranteed. Even so, these scraps were a massive stroke of luck for him. Jiang Chuan picked up the damaged long sword on the table, and a system prompt materialized in his view. Iron longsword. White tier, decomposable. Expected yields, times 2 iron ingots, times 1 leather scrap. Permanent strength plus 0.1. The first 2 material rewards fell within normal bounds, but the third stat bonus sent a jolt of excitement through Jiang Chuan. Might as well test this out. He cautiously checked the doorway to confirm the coast was clear, drew a deep breath, and mentally uttered the word decompose. A warm sensation bloomed in his palm, accompanied by a fleeting glimmer of pale golden light, so faint it was nearly imperceptible. The long sword on the table vanished instantly, replaced neatly by 2 dark iron ingots and a small fragment of leather. At the exact same time, a warm current surged up his arm and circulated through his body. Notification: strength plus 0.1 permanently acquired. Jiang Chuan's eyes widened in shock. It had actually worked that easily? He pulled up his status panel, greeted by an extremely bare-bones attribute interface. Jiang Chuan level, 1 combat class, unassigned life class, novice decomposer proficiency, 0.0001 HP, 10 mana, 10 constitution, 0.4 intelligence, 0.5 strength, 0.3 agility, 0.2 Annotation: the baseline attribute value for an F-rank combat class is set at 1.0. His base stats were abysmally low. Even his highest stat, intelligence, only hit 0.5. Merely half the standard baseline for an F-rank combat professional. All his other attributes sat even further below the threshold. But everything was about to change. Decomposing a single white tier piece of gear granted a permanent plus 0.1 strength boost. 10 such pieces would push his strength up to the official F-rank baseline standard. What would happen if he processed 100 pieces, 1,000, or upgraded to decomposing black iron tier equipment? Another critical detail crossed his mind. Ordinary decomposers were considered skilled enough to land formal roles in large combat regiments if they maintained a 50 overall material recovery rate after decomposition. This figure referred to the total material yield post-successful breakdown. A newly awakened F-rank decomposer faced grim odds from the start. Their decomposition success rate hovered around 35 at best, with material recovery rates dropping as low as 27. Most practitioners would count themselves fortunate to scrape together a 10 total yield from 10 pieces of broken equipment. A steady 50 recovery rate was a benchmark reserved exclusively for high-tier decomposers. In contrast, his recovery rate stood at a flawless 100%. Every scrap of discarded equipment would release its full inherent value under his hands. Take this longsword for example. The damaged white tier weapon would barely fetch 50 credits from buyers, almost exclusively trainee decomposers. After his decomposition, however, it produced 2 refined iron ingots plus leather scraps worth a minimum of 150 credits. Triple the original market value. Jiang Chuan grabbed the cracked leather gauntlets and triggered decomposition once more. The golden flash flickered, the gauntlets dissolved, leaving chunks of leather hide alongside a strip of ox tendon. Notification: Constitution plus 0.1 permanently acquired. He moved on to the deformed bracers, then the rest of the scrap pile one after another. In less than a minute, every broken item on the table had been converted into raw materials. His updated attributes were now: Constitution, 0.8 Intelligence, 0.5 Strength, 0.6 Agility, 0.4. All his physical stats had effectively doubled. Staring at the mound of iron ingots, leather scraps, and metal fragments stacked before him, Jiang Chuan was overcome with surging excitement. He gathered all the processed materials and quickly tallied up the profits in his head. The 12 white tier pieces would have only netted roughly 500 credits if sold as is. Decomposed through his ability, the refined iron, leather, and ox tendon could be remolded into brand new gear and resold easily, with a combined value of no less than 1,600 credits, more than triple the original worth. That was the terrifying power of a perfect 100% recovery rate. While other decomposers celebrated scraping a 30% material yield, he reclaimed every last component, down to the tiniest rivet embedded in the broken equipment. Still, Jiang Chuan stroked his chin thoughtfully. I can't hand over all these materials to the regiment. Decomposers served a core purpose within combat regiments, offsetting the material losses sustained from damaged battlefield gear. The raw materials they recovered were passed to the regiment's blacksmiths and tailors to craft replacement equipment for frontline fighters. Every regiment enforced a minimum mandatory recovery quota for its decomposers. Yields could exceed the baseline, but never fall short. As a top-tier A-rank regiment, Blazing Flame Regiment enforced a strict 50 minimum recovery standard. That said, he had only joined through a personal recommendation from the regiment leader's family. Even if he wanted to demonstrate competence, revealing a perfect 100% recovery rate would be unnatural. Even master-tier decomposers could never pull off such results. Outstanding talent would draw scrutiny, but such an abnormal ability would mark him as suspicious immediately, and Su Yao would definitely grow wary of him. After some deliberation, Jiang Chuan split the materials into 2 portions. He stowed the larger batch, valued at 1,300 credits, into his personal backpack. The remaining handful of iron ingots and leather scraps, worth around 200 credits total, would be submitted as his official decomposition output. A 20% recovery rate was an impressive result for a newly minted F-rank decomposer. More than enough to prove he was competent without standing out excessively or being written off as useless deadweight. Satisfied with his plan, Jiang Chuan tidied up the smaller pile of materials and headed downstairs by pushing open the door. The young woman polishing blades downstairs looked up and scanned him head to toe the moment he appeared. Finished already? All done. Jiang Chuan wore a friendly smile. I never caught your name, by the way. Zhao Xiaoding. She paused briefly before adding flatly, C-rank warrior. Nice to meet you. I'm Jiang Chuan, the new decomposer. Word got around already. Her tone remained detached, making her disdain clear for people who secured positions through personal connections like him. Jiang Chuan paid her cold attitude no mind. Having lived 2 lifetimes, he had long grown desensitized to such judgmental treatment. He was about to strike up more casual conversation to build rapport when loud footsteps echoed from outside the entrance, followed by a boisterous voice booming into the building. Shouting, "I'm back. I argued with my mom all morning and finally got her to approve buying me that bronze bow." Ha ha. A round-faced girl with her hair tied into a bun darted into the hall, waving a purchase slip in her hand, brimming with elation. She spotted Jiang Chuan mid-rush and skidded to a halt. "Huh? Who's this guy?" The new decomposer, Zhao Xiaodang, introduced him shortly. "Jiang Chuan. A decomposer at last." The round-faced girl's eyes lit up instantly. "Our squad's been needing one forever. I've hoarded piles of broken gear unwilling to throw away, just waiting for a decomposer to show up." She bounded over enthusiastically, seized Jiang Chuan's hand, and shook it vigorously back and forth. "Great to meet you. I'm Lin Wanting, the squad's archer. Please look out for me from now on." Jiang Chuan's arm was nearly jostled out of its socket from her overzealous handshake, yet he maintained a polite grin. "No need for formalities. We'll learn from each other. Quick question, what's your rank?" Lin Wanting blinked innocently. "C rank? Or D rank?" "F rank," Jiang Chuan replied plainly. Lin Wanting's handshake froze on the spot, and Zhao Xiaodang also paused her blade polishing motions. An awkward silence hung in the air for roughly 2 full seconds. "F rank, huh?" Lin Wanting let go of his hand. Her smile stayed fixed on her face, yet her enthusiasm visibly dimmed. "That's all right, take it slow. Life professions have plenty of room for growth after all." Her words rang hollow as she darted a sideways glance toward Zhao Xiaodang, silently questioning how Captain Su Yao had recruited such an inexperienced, seemingly useless white-tier decomposer into their squad. Already unimpressed with Jiang Chuan, Zhao Xiaodang spoke bluntly. "He was brought in on Captain Su Lai's arrangement. Didn't you mention having piles of broken equipment? Hand them over for his practice materials." Jiang Chuan did not feel the slightest embarrassment. 2 lifetimes of experience had hardened him against petty judgmental stares. He looked toward Lin Wanting expectantly, silently urging her to hand over the scrap gear she'd mentioned. "I do have some, sure." Lin Wanting forced a stiff smile. Decomposer's recovered materials were returned to the original owner of the broken equipment. She had naturally assumed Captain Su Yao's team would be assigned a seasoned high-tier decomposer as the regiment leader's daughter. An F-rank rookie would mean she lost nearly 40% of her potential material profits. Having already voiced her willingness to hand over her junk gear, however, she could not backtrack without seeming rude. She played it safe and held back her most valuable damaged relics, only dumping a stack of worthless white-tier scrap onto the table while forcing encouraging words. "Keep putting in the work. Hope you climb the ranks to high-tier decomposer soon and bring real value to our squad." A genuine smile tugged at Jiang Chuan's lips as he took possession of the equipment. "I appreciate the supplies." Zhao Xiaodang watched the exchange and cut in abruptly. "Wait, weren't you about to? Right? I'm heading for the training grounds right now." Lin Wanting cut her off sharply, shooting Zhao Xiaodang a pointed warning glance. "I only popped back to fill you in on some news. I'm leaving shortly." Jiang Chuan had already turned and walked toward his dedicated decomposition workshop, his figure vanishing down the corridor. The second he was out of sight, Lin Wanting shot Zhao Xiaodang an irritated glare. "You just couldn't hold your tongue, could you? That broken silver-tier relic contains quicksand gold, which I plan to forge into a personal heirloom weapon for myself. Why on earth would I hand something that precious over for his practice runs?" "That wasn't what I was going to bring up," Zhao Xiaodang shrugged and dropped the topic without further explanation. "Forget it. The benefits afforded by Blazing Flame Regiment far outmatched ordinary mercenary regiments. Decomposers were even granted private workspaces. Jiang Chuan's workshop was a 30-square-meter storage room fitted with weapon racks, equipment lockers, and a large sturdy workbench. He locked the door behind him and laid out all the equipment Lin Wanting had provided across the bench surface. Over 20 pieces of pure white-tier scrap that represented a substantial profit opportunity for him. Thrilled, Jiang Chuan picked up a broken white-tier dagger and mentally activated decomposition. Extraction successful, ×1 iron ingot, ×1 leather scrap obtained. Permanent agility, plus 0.1. He moved on to a tattered cloth robe and triggered the skill once more. Extraction successful, ×2 cloth fabric obtained. Permanent constitution, plus 0.1. Jiang Chuan quickly picked up on a pattern. The stat boosts granted by decomposition were not fixed values. Swords and longswords raised strength, while daggers boosted agility. After a bit of observation, he deduced the stat bonuses aligned with the original intended user class of each piece of equipment. Warrior-grade gear mostly boosted strength and constitution. Assassin and archer equipment raised agility. Intelligence boosts were by far the rarest, as mage equipment inherently carried mana energy and therefore started at the black iron tier, never falling to white tier quality. After decomposing over 30 pieces of white tier scrap total, his intelligence stat remained stuck at the original base value of 0.5. Jiang Chuan finished processing all of Lin Wanting's equipment in short order. After setting aside the 20% material quota he needed to submit to her officially, the leftover refined materials earned him an estimated 2,200 credits. Combined with the 1,300 credits from his first batch of decomposition materials, his total profit climbed to 3,500 credits, equal to his parents' combined monthly household income. He had earned this sum in merely half an hour. His profit ceiling was only limited by the quantity and quality of scrap equipment he could acquire. With more materials, his earnings would surge exponentially. Such was the overwhelming efficiency of his rule-defining innate talent. Jiang Chuan's hands trembled with quiet excitement. Profits were merely the most trivial perk of his unique ability. The boundless permanent stat growth it granted would tear down all limitations confining his life to this small workshop. He needed more equipment, as much scrap gear as he could get his hands on. Boasting a roster of over 2,000 members, a rank-blazing flame regiment generated massive volumes of damaged battlefield equipment, yet those high-value scraps were never allocated to new recruits like him. Su Yao's newly formed squad had yet to participate in many combat missions, leaving them with minimal accumulated scrap reserves. He would need to source materials independently. The public trade market was his immediate solution. With his ability to turn worthless junk into high-value refined materials, the scrap equipment stalls in the market were nothing short of an unlimited cash mine for him. Tianyuan City's central trade market sat in the heart of the main city district, a 20-minute walk from Green Bamboo Alley. Jiang Chuan broke into a brisk jog and covered the distance in just 15 minutes. The market bustled with constant activity, lined with endless rows of vendor stalls selling equipment, raw materials, healing potions, combat skill manuals, and more, with loud hawking calls echoing non-stop through the crowd. Jiang Chuan wove through the throng, scanning the booths until he spotted his target, a stall specializing solely in discarded battle gear. The vendor was a burly middle-aged man with a fierce, stern face, looking less like a legitimate merchant and more like someone who collected protection payments for local gangs. A tattered cloth spread across the ground held 42 pieces of white-tiered damaged weapons and armor, blades, spears, axes, halberds, and other assorted weapon types, every single one cracked, bent, or shattered beyond normal repair. Jiang Chuan knelt beside the stall and picked up a long sword with a jagged, chipped blade. "How much are you selling these damaged pieces for?" 50 credits apiece. Buy 10 or more, and the price drops to 45 each. The vendor shot him a lazy glance. "How many are you looking to take? I counted 42 pieces total here. Can you cut me a better price if I buy the entire bundle?" Jiang Chuan asked after tallying the stock. The vendor raised an eyebrow, surprised by the young man's willingness to purchase his full inventory. He paused to consider for 2 seconds before giving his answer. "If you take everything off my hands in one go, it'll be 1,700 credits flat." 1,700 credits worked out to roughly 40 credits per item. Iron-based weapons fetched the highest resale value among white-tier gear due to the greater iron ingot yield upon decomposition, while leather scraps and cloth fabric brought in far less profit. Longswords also held higher inherent value than smaller daggers, as their forging process consumed larger volumes of raw metal. Jiang Chuan scanned the stall once more and confirmed most of the inventory consisted of large, heavy iron weapons with minimal low-value small scraps. A more than reasonable deal overall. Deal. Jiang Chuan moved to complete the trade before a look of awkwardness crossed his face. "Hold on a moment. Let me convert these processed materials into cash first." "No rush," the vendor replied heartily. "I'll accept equivalent refined materials as payment instead of currency." "That works perfectly for me." Jiang Chuan pulled out 20 iron ingots alongside a bundle of leather scraps, making up the full 1,700 credit value required to claim the 42 pieces of scrap equipment. The vendor had not expected the transaction to wrap up so smoothly and quickly, immediately bundling all the broken gear for Jiang Chuan to carry away. Once the trade concluded, Jiang Chuan turned to the vendor and asked casually, "Hey man, where do you source all this discarded combat equipment anyway?" Discarded gear mostly originates from large combat corps, but major combat corps all employ their own disassemblers, who process these worn-out equipment internally, so very few scraps ever make it to the open market. That was why Jiang Chuan grew curious when he spotted a lone vendor selling such a large pile of discarded gear. "I'm a scavenger," the vendor answered bluntly. "I see." Jiang Chuan nodded in understanding. The Source Realm was not exclusive to humanity. Countless alien races inhabited this world, and to fight over scarce resources, they had designated specific zones as open battlefields. Warriors of all races perished constantly across these war-torn lands, leaving their equipment abandoned on the ground. This drew in scavengers, people with mediocre combat power but extraordinary boldness. They also occasionally took on corpse retrieval jobs, recovering the bodies of fallen professional combatants for their families. For this reason, they were also known as battlefield cleaners. It was an extremely dangerous line of work, one that would help nurture his innate ability, yet it clashed completely with Jiang Chuan's temperament. He could grow infinitely stronger merely by disassembling basic white-tier equipment. There was no need to risk his life out on the battlefield. Foolhardy, reckless. Being a rear-echelon disassembler working within a team was far more suitable for him. Still, the vendor's occupation sparked a new thought in Jiang Chuan's mind. "Mister, do you know any other scavengers you're on good terms with? I have a huge demand for discarded gear. Put me in touch with them if you can. I'll buy every piece they have." The vendor eyed him curiously. "You're a disassembler?" "Nah, I just run errands for a combat corps." Jiang Chuan withheld the truth. "Which corps?" "The Blaze Combat Corps." Respect flickered across the vendor's face. "Wow, that's a top-tier corps. No wonder you're buying in bulk. I do have several scavenger contacts. Let's add each other as contacts, and I'll alert you right away whenever we have stock available." "Sounds good." System prompt. "You have added Shin Erbio to your contact list." Jiang Chuan slung the sack full of equipment over his shoulder and walked out of the marketplace. He could activate his ability freely anywhere within the Source Realm, so he did not wander too far from the market to avoid unnecessary backtracking. He found a quiet, secluded corner, set the sack down on the ground, took a deep breath, and got to work. First item, the nicked short blade. Disassemble. A burst of golden light flashed. Obtained. 3 iron ingots, strength plus 0.1. Second item, a pair of cracked leather boots. Disassemble. Obtained. 4 scrap leather, 1 ox tendon, agility plus 0.1. Third item, a rusted copper bracer. Disassemble. Obtained. 2 copper ingots, constitution plus 0.1. Fourth. Fifth. Crouched against the wall, Jiang Chuan disassembled each piece one after another, working faster and faster. At first, he kept a wary eye on his surroundings for passers-by, but soon he was fully immersed in the thrill of watching his stats climb higher. Strength plus 0.1, constitution plus 0.1, agility plus 0.1. A faint warm current washed through his body with every disassembly, leaving him feeling pleasantly warm all over. He finished processing all 42 pieces of equipment in short order. Panting lightly, he opened his status panel. Jiang Chuan level, 1 combat class, none life class, disassembler basic, proficiency, 0.062 health points, 10 mana points, 10 constitution, 1.6 wisdom, 0.5 strength, 1.7 agility, 0.8. A slow grin spread across his face as he stared at these values. With constitution at 1.6 and strength at 1.7, his physical attributes already met and even exceeded the baseline standard for F-rank combat professionals. His agility stat was barely a hair away from clearing the threshold as well. As a mere life-class disassembler, his physical condition now rivaled that of official F-rank warriors. And this was only the beginning. Jiang Chuan had spent 1,700 currency units on these 42 white-tier pieces, yet the raw materials he extracted were worth no less than 5,500 currency units. A net profit of 3,800. He stowed all materials into his backpack and stood up, ready to sell them off to recoup his capital, then purchase more discarded equipment. It was a perfect snowball cycle. Equipment broken down into materials, materials converted to cash, cash used to buy more equipment. The cycle would only grow larger and faster with each loop, eventually pushing him to the pinnacle of power. Jiang Chuan spent the entire day scurrying back and forth across the marketplace like a diligent worker ant, cycling between buying scrap gear and selling refined materials. He also connected with 2 more scavengers introduced by Shun Erbio and purchased multiple batches of equipment from them. By late afternoon, his hands trembled slightly as he counted his earnings. 75,000 currency units. That was the pure profit he had earned solely from trading discarded white-tier equipment. The gains to his stats filled him with even greater excitement. Constitution, 3.2 Wisdom, 0.5 Strength, 3.4 Agility, 3.1. Wisdom remained stagnant at 0.5, but his other three core attributes had all broken past the 3-point mark. For reference, the baseline requirement for D-rank combat professionals was exactly 3.0 across physical stats. In other words, this F-rank disassembler now possessed a physique comparable to a standard D-rank warrior. Jiang Chuan clenched his fist, feeling tangible power surge within his palm. With ample funds at his disposal, he was no longer limited to purchasing only white-tier scraps. Black iron, bronze, even silver-grade damaged equipment were now viable options. Though their price tags were steeper, the returns from breaking them down would be equally substantial. Yet after wandering the marketplace for hours, Jiang Chuan was left confused. Not a single stall in the market sold black iron tier discarded equipment. Old Wang, you don't have any black iron scrap here? Having spoken with countless stall owners over the afternoon, Jiang Chuan approached a general goods vendor he had grown familiar with. The man known as Old Wang looked confused. High-grade scrap starting from black iron tier never ends up on street stalls. Senior disassemblers employed by large combat corps place advance orders for all of it. Didn't you say you work for the Blaze Combat Corps? How come you don't know this? I was only hired today, so I still have a lot to learn, Jiang Chuan explained. Through their conversation, he learned the key difference between black iron gear and basic white equipment. Black iron items contained embedded magical components with extremely high recycling value. In many cases, these magical raw materials were worth more than the intact finished equipment itself. To offset production losses, gear owners preferred selling damaged black iron equipment directly to major combat corps. Their seasoned disassemblers maximized resource recovery efficiency and were willing to pay premium prices for these scraps. In some cases, well-crafted broken black iron gear could even sell for the same price as fully functional equipment. A thought dawned on Jiang Chuan. So the cost of buying broken black iron gear is roughly equivalent to purchasing an intact black iron weapon. Old Wang thought for a moment and nodded. That's a fair way to put it. Jiang Chuan realized he had been thinking far too narrowly, fixated on turning a profit through resale while overlooking stat growth as his true priority. Thanks to his perfect 100% material recovery rate, disassembling black iron equipment would yield complete, unspoiled magical materials that he could resell with minimal financial loss. He should have shifted his focus to higher-tier scraps long ago. Renewed with motivation, he pressed the vendor for information. Old Wang, where can I buy large quantities of black iron equipment? Old Wang gestured toward the northern district of the city. If you're after black iron gear, head to the Artisan Pavilion. The Artisan Pavilion? It's Tianyuan City's largest formal equipment trading house, stocking every tier of gear imaginable. Old Wang replied while tidying his stall. Just be warned, their prices are far higher than what you'll find at these roadside stalls. You'll find no shortage of black iron scrap there, though. Jiang Chuan's eyes lit up. How had he forgotten about official trading halls entirely? Thanks a lot, Old Wang. After confirming the exact location, he sprinted north without delay. The Artisan Pavilion stood at the heart of Zhuke Avenue, Tianyuan City's most bustling commercial district, a stately 5-story building dominating the streetscape. Jiang Chuan paused at the entrance, glancing up at the grand structure, then down at his own plain, worn clothing. He looked somewhat out of place here. He quickly straightened his posture to bolster his confidence. No need to feel self-conscious. I'm holding 75,000 currency units now. I absolutely qualify to shop here. Steeling himself, he marched through the front doors. A faint sandalwood fragrance greeted him upon entry. The spacious main hall was bright and well lit, with display cabinets lining the walls filled with swords, axes, armor, and bracers of every description, their surfaces shimmering with varied hues under the overhead lighting. Several female attendants assisted visiting customers with product introductions. Jiang Chuan glanced at the price tag on one displayed weapon, and his eyes widened sharply. Steel Cleaver Sword, Bronze Tier, Attack, 2348, Attack Speed plus 17, Shield Piercing plus 12, Price, 18,880 currency units. A single Bronze Tier weapon cost nearly 19,000 currency units. Even if he emptied his entire current fortune of 75,000, he could barely afford 4 such swords. Jiang Chuan clicked his tongue in astonishment at the markup. Sir, may I assist you with anything? One of the female attendants approached him with a gentle smile, her demeanor warm and welcoming without a hint of judgment toward his modest attire. Jiang Chuan appreciated her professional service. I'm looking to purchase black iron tier equipment. Equipment in bulk. The attendant caught the wording and asked politely, "Do you have a specific quantity in mind? First, what is the lowest price available for black iron equipment?" "You must be a disassembler gathering materials for practice," the attendant surmised from experience and gestured toward a side corridor. "Please follow me." She led him past the main hall to a section lined with shelves stacked full of damaged black iron equipment, priced anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 currency units apiece. "For novice disassemblers, I recommend this shelf. These are the most cost-effective pieces, averaging roughly 1,000 currency units each. If you have accumulated sufficient experience, these higher-priced items over here would suit you better." She pointed separately to the 1,000 and 3,000 currency unit racks. Jiang Chuan studied the merchandise with a confused frown. These items all have nearly identical base attributes, so why is there a nearly threefold gap in price? The attendant offered a soft smile. "These cheaper pieces are forged by master blacksmiths." Jiang Chuan stared blankly at the 1,000 currency shelf. "Did you point me to the wrong section?" Her smile softened into a patient explanation, free of mockery. Skilled mastersmiths possess the craft to forge decent functional equipment using lower-grade base materials. However, these cost-efficient forged pieces contain inferior raw materials, meaning the reusable materials extracted through disassembly have relatively low market value. On the other hand, disassembling both low-cost and high-cost black iron gear grants the exact same amount of disassembler proficiency. If your only goal is to level up your profession, the cheaper stock is the most economical choice. If you can consistently achieve high material recovery rates, the more expensive equipment will yield higher value materials to help you recuperate most of your initial spending. Zhang was thoroughly impressed by her thorough, thoughtful explanation, feeling quite pleased by her attentive service and briefly considering tipping her before restraining himself. His funds were not unlimited just yet. After running quick calculations in his head, he confirmed her logic held true. Some of the pricier black iron scraps contained raw materials viable for crafting bronze-tier gear. For someone with his flawless material recovery rate, investing in these higher-tier scraps would never result in financial loss. After careful selection, he spoke up. "I'll take all 20 pieces on this shelf. Please pack them for me." 20 pieces? The attendant's lips parted in surprise before a delighted expression crossed her face. Sales commissions were tied to transaction volume. She quickly set about gathering and packing all the selected equipment. "Would you happen to hold a membership card with our establishment? Does membership come with purchase discounts?" Jiang Chuan asked immediately. "Indeed it does." The attendant nodded gently. "We offer silver, gold, and diamond tier memberships. Silver membership grants a 5% discount on all purchases, and your current order total is enough to qualify for an immediate silver membership with instant activation. 20 pieces totaled 60,000 currency units, meaning a 5% discount would save him a full 3,000 currency units outright. Sign me up for the silver membership right away." "One moment, please." The attendant hurried off and soon returned holding the membership card alongside a small palm-sized pouch. She offered it to him with a soft smile. "This is a small personal gift from me, sir. I hope you will accept it." Cloud-embroidered pouch, black iron tier, backpack capacity, plus 20, passive effect activates automatically while stored in your inventory. It was a highly practical item. Every professional combatant possessed a built-in system backpack, yet the default storage space was extremely limited early on. Stackable raw materials took up minimal space, but each individual piece of equipment occupied its own dedicated slot. Carrying large loads of gear forced people like Jiang Chuan to resort to cumbersome sacks for transport. The attendant had clearly noticed his inadequate storage situation and gifted the pouch out of consideration. Though the item itself was inexpensive, the thoughtful gesture warmed his heart. Jiang glanced at the name tag pinned to her uniform bearing the name Xinger and composed himself smoothly after a momentary pause. "Thank you very much, Miss Xinger. I will seek you out for all my future equipment purchases here." Warm light swirled in Xinger's eyes as she replied, "It is my greatest pleasure to be of service to you." Jiang silently thought how pleasant her tone was, especially compared to the arrogant, entitled retail staff he had dealt with in his past life. He placed all the packaged equipment inside the embroidered pouch and stored it within his system backpack, preparing to leave. Just then, a familiar voice drifted over from outside the side hall. "Is there truly nothing you can do?" The tone was cool, edged with barely concealed urgency. Jiang Chuan froze in place. He recognized this voice vividly. Acting on quiet curiosity, he stepped out of the side hall and peeked toward the main counter. A young woman clad in white lightweight armor stood before the desk with long hair flowing down her shoulders. her posture straight and her facial features exquisitely sculpted as if painted by a master artist. A spear lay on the counter before her, its shaft covered in cracks and the spearhead heavily chipped, looking as though it had been salvaged straight from a rubbish heap. Ling Aoshuang. The two had shared an awkward, unpleasant misunderstanding only the previous day. The icy beauty's brows were tightly furrowed as she faced an elderly robed craftsman with a goatee and an air of quiet authority. "Miss Ling, it is not that I am unwilling to help." The elder stroked his beard with a troubled look. "Your spear has sustained catastrophic structural damage. The repair success rate sits below 10%, and the core materials of the shaft have degraded over time. Even if the restoration were to succeed, the weapon's overall quality would drop drastically. In my honest opinion, purchasing a brand new spear would be the wiser choice." Ling Aoshuang's gaze dimmed. "This spear holds irreplaceable sentimental value to me. I cannot bring myself to replace it." The elder heaved a helpless sigh. "Then I am truly unable to assist you. You may seek other craftsmen across the city, yet I doubt anyone within Tianyuan City will take on this restoration job." Ling Aoshuang fell silent for several seconds before reaching out to pick up her damaged spear and turned to leave. She instantly felt someone's gaze fixed upon her and swept her eyes across the hall, locking onto Jiang Chuan standing in the side hall doorway. Jiang Chuan hesitated, torn between lingering to watch the scene unfold or making a hasty retreat. Their eyes met, and he clearly witnessed the shift in Ling Aoshuang's expression from calm recognition to the lingering resentment born from their earlier conflict. "It's you," Ling Aoshuang said sharply. "Hee. What a coincidence running into you here, Class President Ling." Jiang Chuan let out an awkward laugh. "Are you here to purchase supplies as well?" Ling Aoshuang let out a cold huff and ignored his question, still harboring lingering irritation from their run in the day before. As class monitor, she had felt obligated to check on her classmates' mental well-being. After witnessing Jiang Chuan fall into a stupor upon awakening his F-rank disassembler talent, she had gone over to comfort him, only to get pinched hard on the thigh and insulted for her trouble. Though she now understood it had been a misunderstanding, the unpleasant encounter still lingered fresh in her mind. Jiang Chuan's attention drifted down to the broken spear clutched in her hands, and the moment his gaze landed on the weapon, his system panel automatically displayed its information. Broken North Moon Spear, Gold Tier. Disassemblable. Projected recoveries: 1 star steel ingot, 2 dragon scale timber, 3 crystal silver ingots. Permanent stat bonuses: Constitution, Wisdom, Strength, Spirit. Jiang Chuan's pupils constricted sharply. Gold Tier? This battered, broken spear was actually a Gold Tier legendary weapon? His heart skipped a beat as he masked his shock with a casual tone. "This spear of yours is in terrible shape." Ling Aoshuang lowered her lashes and brushed her fingertips gently along the cracked wood of the shaft. "It is. The elder just said restoration is impossible?" "Yes." Jiang Chuan carefully phrased his suggestion. "Blacksmiths cannot mend it, but if you hand the weapon over to a top-tier disassembler, they can extract all the intact core materials, which you could then use for reforging a new spear." Ling Aoshuang stared at him with obvious disbelief. The sole reason she sought repairs was her lack of funds. She could not afford a replacement weapon, which was why she clung to fixing her old one. Hiring a renowned top-tier disassembler would cost an astronomical sum, and even elite disassemblers were not guaranteed a perfect material recovery rate for gold-tier equipment. Ling Aoshuang had always regarded Jiang Chuan as a quiet, steady young man in class, yet this suggestion struck her as utterly unrealistic. Disappointment flickered across her features as she replied flatly, "That will not be necessary." Jiang Chuan had no intention of letting such a rare opportunity slip away for free stat boosts. He quickly stepped forward to block her path, dropping his playful tone for a sincere, earnest expression. "I personally know a highly skilled top-tier disassembler. Give this spear to me, and I guarantee every core material will be extracted intact." Ling Aoshuang's icy gaze sharpened with faint sarcasm. "I suppose this so-called top-tier disassembler is none other than yourself." Jiang Chuan evaded a direct confirmation. "The weapon is beyond repair regardless. Treat this as a last-ditch attempt. What harm can there be in trying?" Ling Aoshuang let out a cold, hollow laugh and turned away without another word. What if it actually works? Those words made Ling Aoshuang halt her steps against her better judgment. She turned back, locking eyes with Jiang Chuan. "Can you fully extract the materials without a hitch?" Jiang Chuan had already written off his chance. His face lit up with elation the second he heard her question. "I'm 100% certain." "Well, not me personally, but a top-tier decomposer I know can pull this off without fail." Ling Aoshuang sank into a long silence before holding out the spear in her grasp. "Take it." Jiang Chuan froze on the spot. She was just handing it over like this? It was a gold-tier weapon, damaged beyond practical use, yet still worth a hefty sum. Did she not fear he would grab it and flee? Won't you worry, I'll run off with this. Jiang Chuan blurted out the thought plaguing him. Ling Aoshuang stared back at him with an impassive expression. You cannot escape me. For plain words spoken in a calm tone, yet Jiang Chuan sensed a bone-chilling menace laced within them. I won't run, not at all. Jiang Chuan hastily received the spear with both hands. If I bolted now, I'd never be able to show my face in Tianyuan City ever again. The moment his fingers wrapped around the spear shaft, the system panel refreshed its data once more. Broken Moon North Wind Spear, severely damaged, gold grade, decomposable. Projected recovery output, Star Iron ×1, Dragon Scale Timber ×2, Crystal Silver ×3, Constitution +5, Intelligence +5, Strength +5, Dexterity +5. All the formerly question-mark stats had solidified into concrete numerical values. +5 to every single core attribute. Jiang Chuan's breathing grew shallow and rapid. A plain white equipment only granted a meager +0.1 to attributes. Black iron gear topped out at +0.5 at most. A single gold-tier weapon delivered a total of 20 attribute points all at once. Such an outrageous boost was beyond belief. What's wrong? Ling Aoshuang noticed his drastic shift in demeanor and narrowed her brows slightly. Nothing. Jiang Chuan drew a deep breath to calm his racing emotions. I just hate seeing valuable materials from this spear go to waste when they could still be salvaged properly. How long will this decomposition take? Ling Aoshuang cut straight to the point. 30 minutes flat. Jiang Chuan answered without hesitation. I'll head to find that master decomposer right now. Wait for me here. I'll be back shortly. Stowing the spears safely away, Jiang Chuan sprinted out of the artifact pavilion without delay. After rounding 2 street corners, he located a secluded dead-end alley. This spot will do perfectly. Jiang Chuan crouched down and unfastened the storage pouch holding his collection of black iron equipment. 20 complete black iron armaments of varying types lay neatly inside, each handpicked with care. He picked up the first piece, a set of shoulder pauldrons. Decompose. A flash of golden light burst forth. Extraction successful. Iron ingot ×5, soft hide ×1, Mist Spirit Jade ×1, strength +0.5. 1 black iron item granted 0. 5 attribute points, 5 times the yield of basic white-grade equipment. On top of that, the refined magical materials yielded from complete decomposition fetched an impressive market price. These costly pieces of equipment rarely turned a profit for blacksmiths. Most were forged purely as practice pieces for crafters leveling their profession. Smiths used premium raw materials solely to raise their forging success rate, accepting minimal losses as a necessary cost to cultivate high-level production skills. The Mist Spirit Jade alone sold for roughly 3,000 standard currency units on the open market. Factoring in the rest of the refined forging materials, he stood to net a tidy profit overall. Steadying his breath, Jiang Chuan began mass decomposition in quick succession. Second item, black iron bracers. Decompose. Constitution +0.5. Third item, black iron chest plate. Decompose. Strength +0.5. Fourth item, black iron shield. Decompose. Constitution +0.5. The 10th piece, the 15th piece, the 20th piece. Streaks of golden light flickered non-stop, shrouding Jiang Chuan's entire body within a faint golden aura. The warm energy flooding his veins was no longer a thin trickle, but a raging current surging through every limb and vessel. He could physically feel his body transforming. His muscles grew firmer, his bones hardened, and his heartbeat thrummed with greater vigor. It was a comprehensive physical metamorphosis, an evolutionary leap forward for his very life essence. With all 20 black iron pieces fully decomposed, Jiang Chuan panted heavily and fixed his gaze firmly on the damaged gold spear in his possession. The Broken Moon Northwind Spear. A massive chunk was missing from its spear tip and cracked spiderwebbed across the wooden shaft, as if the weapon would shatter entirely under the slightest force. Trash in the eyes of everyone else, this spear was a priceless treasure to him. Jiang Chuan gripped the spear firmly with both hands and whispered the command inwardly. Decompose. A low resonant hum echoed through the alley. This burst of golden radiance far outshone every previous decomposition reaction. Blinding golden light erupted from the spear, illuminating the narrow passage as bright as midday sunlight. Jiang Chuan squeezed his eyes shut instinctively, feeling a tremendous force surge between his palms, as though he clutched a living dragon writhing within his grasp. The radiant glow lingered for a full 5 seconds before slowly fading away. Jiang Chuan opened his eyes and glanced downward. The spear had vanished completely. In its place rested 3 piles of materials laid out neatly on the ground. Silvery metal shimmering with faint starlight, 2 lengths of dark timber carrying a subtle natural fragrance, and 3 high-purity silver ingots. Star iron, dragon-scale timber, crystal silver. These 3 raw materials alone would sell for no less than over 1 million currency units, if traded publicly. Yet monetary value was the last thing on Jiang Chuan's mind. The power flooding into his body was tenfold more intense than the combined energy from all his prior decompositions put together. Gritting his teeth hard, Jiang Chuan braced himself against the alley wall, bulging veins prominent across his forehead. It took a long while for the violent influx of energy to settle inside his body. Gasping for air, he opened his character status panel. Constitution, 11.2 Intelligence, 7.5 Strength, 11.3 Dexterity, 10.4 Standard baseline attributes sat at 1 point for F-rank professionals, 2 points for E-rank, and increased incrementally with each tier upward. Even Ling Aoshuang, an S-rank talent, only held a base attribute value of 7 per stat. By comparison, his lowest stat, Intelligence, already hit the 7-point threshold, while his other 3 attributes surpassed the 10-point mark, a value unattainable even for SSS-rank professionals. He was overwhelmingly powerful now. Jiang Chuan was confident he could knock an adult bull unconscious with a single punch at his current physical level. He did not dwell on his newfound strength for long. Ling Aoshuang was still waiting for him at the artifact pavilion, and he could not afford to let her believe he had truly run off. Jiang Chuan quickly gathered the decomposed materials and sprinted back toward the pavilion at top speed. As he drew near, he spotted Ling Aoshuang standing outside the main entrance. 3 strangers stood beside her. 2 young men and 1 woman clad in matching dark armor etched with a crescent moon emblem on their chest plates. The group's leader was a tall young man in his early 20s with neat, sharp features and an air of unbridled arrogance. Dark Moon was an S-rank combat squad, the most powerful professional squad dominating Tianyuan City, an undisputed hegemonic force within the city's boundaries. Jiang Chuan's expression turned solemn. He had learned of Ling Aoshuang back during his school days. Rumor claimed this elite squad had extended a lavish contract offer to her, promising an extremely bright future. Evidently, the group before him was none other than the Dark Moon Combat Squad. The 3 surrounded Ling Aoshuang, chatting casually, the young leader making his clear romantic intentions known toward her. After observing the scene for a short moment, Jiang Chuan walked forward with the salvaged materials in hand. Outside the artifact pavilion, the 3 squad members had already learned what had transpired between Ling Aoshuang and Jiang Chuan. Chen Ping, the young squad leader, wore a look of helpless exasperation. Aoshuang, how could you be so careless to trust the words of an unknown outsider? This spear is your Ling family's ancestral heirloom. How could you hand it over to someone with no verifiable background? It only qualifies as a family treasure if it serves me. Useless scrap metal is all it is now, Ling Aoshuang replied flatly. She checked the time. 33 minutes had passed since their agreed deadline. Though she had prepared herself for disappointment, a heavy sense of loss welled up in her chest regardless. I misjudged him, she sighed quietly. The young female squad member shot Shin Ping a meaningful glance. That boy lied about knowing a top-tier decomposer to swindle you. Within the entirety of Tianyuan City, only Dark Moon Squad employs a master-class decomposer. You should have brought this issue to Chen Ping sooner. He could have resolved this matter effortlessly. The second male squad member chimed in. You are officially a member of Dark Moon now. You only need to voice your needs to the squad instead of seeking help from random outsiders. Chen Ping smiled smoothly. Aoshuang, I can source brand new gold-grade weaponry for you with ease, let alone restore materials from a damaged piece of equipment. Chen Ping was the only son of Dark Moon Squad's leader and possessed a rank talent, placing him among the most outstanding young talents across Tianyuan City. His boast held solid merit. Gold-tier equipment was a rarity for ordinary people, yet Dark Moon's vault housed dozens of such artifacts at minimum. Ling Aoshuang simply shook her head without further comment. Everyone knew Dark Moon had signed her with an exorbitant contract for ulterior motives, but she refused to submit to a predetermined fate and strove to seize control of her own future. She would never accept favors or owe debts to Chen Ping under any circumstances. We should take our leave, she said, regaining her usual composure in an instant. Wait. Jiang Chuan arrived just as she turned to depart. Ling Aoshuang froze and spun back around, a flicker of surprise cutting through her icy gaze. You came back. I've delivered on my promise. Jiang Chuan grinned, and laid the 3 piles of materials out before her. Ling Aoshuang stared in shock, her pupils widening as she examined the star iron, dragon scale timber, and crystal silver in his hands. The purity of these materials far exceeded every expectation she had held. The spear had endured centuries of wear and tear. The pavilion elder had warned her the materials would have lost most of their inherent spiritual energy over time, resulting in degraded, low-value extracts. Yet the materials Jiang Chuan presented looked indistinguishable from freshly mined raw resources. Did your decomposer refine all of these? Ling Aoshuang's voice trembled faintly. Yes, Jiang Chuan nodded. I told you the master decomposer I know possesses unparalleled skill. Ling Aoshuang accepted the materials, parted her lips as if to speak, yet only 2 words escaped her mouth. Thank you. No trouble at all. The 3 Dark Moon squad members stood by in stunned disbelief. Could a second master-grade decomposer truly reside within Tianyuan City? A sharp sense of urgency stirred within Shinping. If Jiang Chuan could secure the services of such a prestigious craftsman, his own social standing must be considerable. To make matters worse, the young man was remarkably handsome as well. May I ask your name? Shinping asked stiffly. He's my former classmate. Jiang Chuan answered at the exact same moment Ling Aoshuang spoke. A friend. Jiang Chuan blinked and shot a glance toward Ling Aoshuang, who maintained a calm, unperturbed expression as if her wording was completely natural. Shinping's sense of unease intensified tenfold. A pleasure to meet you. Shinping gave a curt nod toward Jiang Chuan before abruptly shifting the conversation back to Ling Aoshuang. Aoshuang, we depart for the Silver Wolf Secret Realm for leveling tonight, and our time is limited. We ought to return for practice immediately. He stressed the name Silver Wolf Secret Realm intentionally, hoping to gauge Jiang Chuan's reaction. Jiang Chuan's expression remained utterly placid. He had never heard of the Silver Wolf Secret Realm before, though Shinping's tone made it obvious it was a high-value advanced leveling zone. Regardless, what possible relevance could a secret realm hold for a decomposer like himself? Ling Aoshuang carried a perpetually cold, distant demeanor, yet she was far from ignorant of interpersonal dynamics. If they had been alone, she would have gladly conversed with Jiang Chuan for a while longer. In Shinping's presence, however, any further interaction would only bring unnecessary trouble down on Jiang Chuan. She turned her body and glanced sideways toward him. I will seek you out again if I require your assistance. Understood. Jiang Chuan watched the 4 figures walk away, a faint trace of melancholy tugging at his heart before he shook off the pointless thoughts with a self-deprecating smile. S-rank talents and elite combat squads existed in a world vastly removed from the life of an average person such as himself. After all, he was merely a genius bound by the fundamental laws of this world system. Dusk had fallen across Tianyuan City. The sunset dyed the entire city walls a warm tangerine red, while silhouettes of flying practitioners streaked across the sky, leaving long glowing trails in their wake. Jiang Chuan slapped his forehead abruptly. He held official membership within the Blazing Flame Combat Squad, and vanishing for an entire day without notice was blatant disregard for his squad leaders. He hurried all the way back to Green Bamboo Alley. Before stepping through the courtyard gate, he sensed an unmistakably heavy, tense atmosphere hanging in the air. Zhao Xiaodang practiced swordsmanship within the yard, while Lin Wanxiong loosed arrows at a target dummy off to one side. Both women turned their heads the second they spotted him return. Jiang Chuan was confused. They had all gotten along fine earlier that day. Why were they acting like complete strangers toward him now? As soon as one foot crossed the threshold, a voice drifted down from the second floor. Jiang Chuan. Su Yao's tone was frigid, sharp with open interrogation. Jiang Chuan's heart sank instantly. He had been caught slacking off by his squad captain. Come upstairs. He climbed the staircase and pushed open the study door to see an unexpected scene. Su Yao sat at her usual window seat reading a book with a cold expression. 2 additional people occupied the room. A burly young man clad in light armor slouched lazily on the right sofa with a mocking smirk, alongside a 20-something man draped in an ash-gray robe who greeted Jiang Chuan amicably. My name is Fong Lin. Jiang Chuan, he replied with a nod. Su Yao closed her book and cut off their brief exchange before Jiang Chuan could explain his unapproved absence. Instead of reprimanding him for vanishing all afternoon, she delivered a new arrangement. Fong Lin is our squad's newly recruited intermediate decomposer. He will handle all core decomposition work from now on. Your role will be assisting him with menial tasks to learn the trade. A strained smile faded from Jiang Chuan's face. What is the meaning of this? What do you think it means? Disgust flickered across Su Yao's features as she spoke sharply. Does every squad decision require your personal approval? Am I obligated to report every managerial choice to you? That was not my intention, Jiang Chuan frowned. Something was clearly wrong. Su Yao had been straightforward, yet welcoming earlier that morning, even providing him equipment for practice runs. Her attitude had soured drastically in only a few short hours. Su Yao waved a hand dismissively, as if swatting away an annoying insect. Leave my office now. Jiang Chuan exited the room with a blank facial expression. Though unaware of the root cause for her sudden hostility, Su Yao's stance was crystal clear. The newly arrived Fong Lin was meant to fully replace his work within the squad. Lin Wanxiong pulled her arrows free from the target as he walked into the courtyard. She hesitated for a moment before stepping forward to whisper quietly. Su Yao received a communication from her father this afternoon, and her mood has plummeted ever since that call. How does that connect to what's happening with me? Jiang Chuan questioned. Before Lin Wanxiong could respond, the armored youth from upstairs stepped out into the yard alongside Fong Lin. As they walked past Jiang Chuan, Zhao Han spat out a contemptuous remark. Reaching for goals far beyond your station, utterly delusional behavior. Hold on. Jiang Chuan halted him with a frown. What exactly are you insinuating? Zhao Han paused and sneered openly. Don't play dumb. You know full well what I mean. Do you believe you can leverage your father saving Captain Su's life to curry favor and advance yourself unfairly? Su Yao is a peerless genius blessed with B-rank talent. A lowly F-rank decomposer like yourself is not remotely worthy of standing beside her. Jiang Chuan stared blankly in confusion for a moment before piecing together the full picture. Captain Su Lai had intended to arrange a romantic match between him and Su Yao out of gratitude for his father saving the captain's life. The phone call Su Yao received that afternoon must have covered this forced pairing, explaining her complete shift in demeanor toward him. Jiang Chuan felt utterly exasperated by the whole mess. His sole priorities were earning money steadily and building his strength quietly with low visibility. Romantic entanglements were the last thing he cared about. Even if someone as striking and graceful as Ling Aoshuang caught his eye to a small degree, Su Yao simply held no appeal for him whatsoever. Su Yao disliked him intensely, and the feeling was entirely mutual on his end. There was no feasible way to clarify this misunderstanding to anyone. Oddly enough, Su Yao's cold treatment worked in his favor. With Fong Lin taking over official squad decomposition duties, Jiang Chuan gained far more free time to himself. He now possessed enough startup capital to purchase high-grade equipment from the Artifact Pavilion for personal decomposition, a far more efficient method of growing stronger than tinkering with low-quality white gear for the squad. Fong Lin wore a false, polite smile as he spoke. Rest assured, Jiang Chuan, if you assist me with my work, I will make certain you gain valuable practical experience. Jiang Chuan shot him a cold, impassive glance and left the courtyard without a single reply. Zhao Han spat on the ground the second Jiang Chuan's back was turned. A privileged beneficiary riding on old favors with such an arrogant attitude. Fong Lin, don't treat him with any courtesy from now on. Pile all the tedious, grueling labor onto him without mercy. I will take full responsibility if any problems arise. A citywide curfew was enforced in Tianyuan City past 9 o'clock at night. All professionals below Tier 3 were banned from lingering outdoors after curfew hours, and local shops had long since locked their doors for the evening. Jiang Chuan logged out of the Source Realm simulation. The clink of cookware drifted from the living room as his mother Wang Xiulan prepared dinner, warm cooking aromas seeping through the bedroom door gaps. He sat up and pushed open his bedroom door. Mom, let me help with cooking. No need. Rest yourself. Wang Xiulan replied without turning around as she stirred ingredients in the wok. Was your first day at the combat squad tiring? How is Captain Su treating you? Everything is fine. The squad members are all decent people. Jiang Chuan leaned against the kitchen doorframe with a gentle smile. That is such a relief. Wang Xiulan twisted to face him, her expression a mix of heartfelt joy and quiet concern. Your father will be home soon. He said he would finish work early to celebrate your official entry into the combat squad today. As soon as his words faded, the door lock clicked, and Zhang Mingyuan pushed the door open and stepped inside. Weariness still etched across his face. How did it go, son? Did anyone from the Blazing Battle Group give you trouble? Everything went fine. Jiang Chuan repeated his answer once more. Zhang Mingyuan changed his shoes, freshened up, then walked into the kitchen to glance at the stew simmering in the pot, nodding in satisfaction. Braised pork with vermicelli, a fine dish. I'm in a good mood today. I ought to have a couple drinks. All you ever think about is drinking. Wang Xiulan shot him a disapproving glance, yet still retrieved a bottle of Hongxing Erguotu from the cabinet. 3 dishes and a soup filled the dinner table. Jiang Chuan rose to fill his father's liquor glass halfway, pouring a small amount for himself as well. Overjoyed, Jiang Mingyuan lifted his cup. Here's to you, son. Cheers to your official admission into the blazing battle group. Now that you've got a solid path ahead, your old man can finally rest easy. Jiang Chuan clinked his glass against his father's and took a sip, wincing sharply from the burning liquor. Slow down, drink slowly. Wang Xiulan scooped a portion of scrambled eggs onto his plate. Eat more food to line your stomach first. After a few mouthfuls of food, Jiang Chuan set down his chopsticks and spoke with careful deliberation. Mom, Dad, Captain Su advanced me my first month's salary today, 20,000 yuan up front. He pulled a stack of cash from his pocket, placed it on the table, and slid it toward his parents. Wang Xiulan stared blankly at the money, and Jiang Mingyuan froze mid-air with his chopsticks suspended above his bowl. 20,000? Wang Xiulan raised her voice in shock. You only showed up for your first day of work, and they advanced you 20,000 yuan just like that? The pay is excellent for a grade A battle group, Jiang Chuan replied with a calm expression. Keep this money to pay off the family's debts. Moving forward, I'll earn 20,000 each month. The group also subsidizes all equipment I need for practice, so I'll barely spend any money at all. We can't take this money. Wang Xiulan immediately pushed the cash back toward him. Now that you have steady income, you need to invest it in practice gear right away. The disassembler profession demands heavy financial investment in the early stages. If your proficiency doesn't improve, how will you hold your standing within the battle group? Jiang Mingyuan set his chopsticks down, his tone earnest. Your mother is right. Since Captain Su has treated you so generously, you must spend this money on worthwhile pursuits. Repay the battle group's kindness someday. Gratitude is a virtue we must uphold. But I was hoping, listen to your father. Jiang Mingyuan's voice was soft yet resolute. Your mother and I have lived out our lives as they are. You're young, with boundless potential. This money needs to be spent where it matters most. Wang Xiulan took an old cloth pouch from beside her and unfolded it layer by layer, revealing a neat bundle of banknotes inside. This 50,000 yuan is the savings your father and I have scrimped and saved over many years. She slid the sum over to Jiang Chuan. We originally set this aside for your marriage expenses, but now that you've joined the battle group, funds are what you need most. Take it first. You can pay us back once you start earning more. Jiang Chuan let out a quiet sigh to himself. He had anticipated this exact reaction from his parents, which was why he hadn't dared hand over the full sum he'd earned. In truth, he had profited nearly 100,000 yuan in a single day, but he could never tell them the truth. It would only fill them with unnecessary worry. Jiang Chuan quietly put the money away, a sudden realization dawning on him. No matter how much money he gave his parents directly, they would never spend a cent on themselves. It was an ingrained habit forged from decades of frugality common to their generation. If he truly wanted to care for them, he would have to convert the money into goods that could not be returned. With that thought, Jiang Chuan dropped the topic and let the matter rest. Early the next morning, Jiang Chuan entered the Source Realm. He first headed to the battle group headquarters to complete his daily sign-in. This position had been secured through his father's personal connections after all. While he had no obligation to curry favor with Su Yao, disregarding the battle group's basic rules would only bring shame to his father's name. More importantly, his official status within the group provided a believable cover story to explain his income to his parents. As soon as he finished signing in, Jiang Chuan left without lingering another second and headed straight for the Artificer Pavilion. Streets across Tianyuan City were already bustling with pedestrians at dawn. Street vendors called out to sell breakfast treats, and a faint chill lingered in the air from the night before. The front gates of the Artificer Pavilion had only just opened when Jiang Chuan strode inside, spotting Xing behind the service counter at once. She wore a pale cyan cheongsam that day, her hair neatly coiled into a bun as she touched up her makeup using a vanity case. A group of women staff dressed in elegant cheongsams gathered nearby, presenting a graceful, pleasant sight. Xing looked surprised to see Jiang Chuan walk in, then quickly donned a professional smile and hurried over to greet him. Mr. Jiang, you're here remarkably early today. The early bird catches the worm. Jiang Chuan smiled faintly before getting straight to the point. I'd like to browse higher-grade equipment today. Does that mean you intend to purchase bronze-tier gear? Xing's eyes widened with clear excitement. Bronze equipment sold for an average of 10,000 yuan apiece within the pavilion, and she earned a 3% commission on every sale, netting her at minimum several hundred yuan per transaction. She quickly flipped through the merchandise manifest. We stock over 300 pieces of bronze equipment in total, around a third of which match your requirements. How many pieces would you like to purchase? Jiang Chuan skimmed the listed prices, confirming the average cost of a bronze item hovered around 10,000 yuan, then tallied his available funds mentally. He had earned nearly 100,000 yuan from reselling materials the previous day, plus the 50,000 yuan his parents had given him. Combined with the member discount offered by the Artificer Pavilion, the total sum was enough for him to buy 15 pieces of bronze equipment. "I'll take 15 pieces to start," Jiang Chuan stated. "Right away, I'll have these packaged for you immediately." 15 pieces of bronze equipment were brought out and neatly arranged across the counter in an assortment of styles. Every piece shared one key trait. Dense, high-quality raw materials were used in their forging. Even with their relatively steep price tags, disassembling them to resell the refined materials would guarantee he suffered no real losses. Naturally, the attribute boosts these items granted were the far greater priority. Jiang Chuan paid the bill, stowed the equipment in his storage bag, exchanged a quick farewell with Xing, and departed the Artificer Pavilion. He made his way to his usual secluded spot, checked to confirm no one was nearby, drew in a deep breath, and activated his disassemble skill. First item, Bronze Cleaver. Wind Slicing Cleaver, disassemblable. Expected yields: 4 refined steel ingots, 1 star calling or 1 wind demon stone. Grants plus 1.5 strength, plus 1.5 strength. Jiang Chuan's eyes lit up. Ordinary white-grade equipment only granted 0.1 attribute points. Black iron gear offered 0.5 points. Yet bronze equipment delivered a full 1.5 points apiece. Attribute growth multiplied exponentially with each tier upgrade. He moved on without pause. Second item, Bronze Longbow, plus 1.5 agility. Third item, Bronze Chestplate, plus 1.5 constitution. Sixth piece, 10th piece, 15th piece. Golden light flashed in successive bursts, shrouding Jiang Chuan entirely within a glowing aura. Streams of scorching warmth surged into his body from his palms, coursing through his meridians and spreading to every limb and bone. 12 out of the 15 bronze pieces boosted his 3 core physical stats: strength, constitution, and agility, with only 3 improving his intelligence. In total, the equipment granted him a permanent stat increase of 22.5 points. An immense rush of exhilaration washed over Jiang Chuan. He couldn't help but wonder. If he continued growing at this pace, would he gain enough power to overwhelm the entire world while still remaining at level 1? He shook his head to dismiss the absurd thought and gathered up all the disassembled materials, heading for the 100 Treasures firm, a dedicated material resale establishment. The Artificer Pavilion did offer competitive buyback rates for forging materials, but Jiang Chuan was far from foolish, and neither were the pavilion's staff. If he bought bulk equipment directly from their shop only to immediately return with raw materials for sale, anyone with basic sense would grow suspicious of his actions. Selling his goods at a separate location was a precaution Jiang Chuan had put in place to conceal his secret ability. While this safeguard would not hold up under rigorous investigation, he would grow overwhelmingly powerful within a week at his current rate of progress. Once that threshold was reached, scrutiny from others would cease to matter entirely. The materials refined from the 15 pieces of bronze equipment sold for just over 160,000 yuan, leaving him with a net profit from the whole transaction. Still, his profit margins were gradually shrinking. Higher-tier equipment carried inherent market premiums due to their scarcity. He could still turn a small profit with bronze gear, yet silver-tier equipment would likely result in pure financial loss. Even so, Jiang Chuan brushed the concern aside. Minor losses were acceptable as upfront investment. With his rapidly rising personal strength, recouping every penny would be trivial. Time for another round. Jiang Chuan turned and hurried back into the Artificer Pavilion. Xing stared in visible surprise when he reappeared mere moments after leaving. "Is there something else you require, Mr. Jiang? Give me another 16 pieces of bronze equipment." "Pardon?" Xing blinked in bewilderment. "You only just purchased a large batch a moment ago." She cut her own sentence short, realizing it was not her place to question her customers' private affairs. Prying into clients' business would only land her in unnecessary trouble. "Please wait a moment while I retrieve your order." Xing fetched 16 more bronze items without delay and spoke politely. "Your cumulative spending in our shop has reached 200,000 yuan, qualifying you for a gold tier membership. Gold members receive a 7 discount on all purchases. Would you like to complete the membership upgrade now? A 7% discount means even greater savings. Sign me up for the upgrade at once." Jiang Chuan asked an additional question. "Is Diamond membership the tier above Gold? What total spending threshold is required for Diamond rank, and what discount does it provide?" Xing smiled and answered. "Diamond members enjoy a 10 discount. unlocked upon accumulating 1 million yuan in spending. Diamond tier clients also receive exclusive VIP treatment with full access to the 5th floor of the pavilion. The Artificer Pavilion spanned 5 floors in total. The first floor solely stocked low-grade black iron and bronze equipment. Starting from the 2nd floor, visitors could browse silver tier and superior weaponry alongside rare treasures and exotic artifacts. Jiang Chuan's newly acquired gold membership already granted him entry to the 4th floor, though he set aside any plans to explore it for the time being. Prioritizing his power growth was his top priority. He collected his new batch of equipment and rushed off once more. Less than 30 minutes later, he returned to Xing's astonished gaze and spent another 200,000 yuan to purchase 20 additional bronze pieces. This pattern repeated several times over. Before long, Jiang Chuan's system panel displayed his stats having climbed to unprecedented heights. Jiang Chuan level: 1 health points, 1,000 mana points, 1,000 constitution, 100 current level hard cap intelligence, 100 current level hard cap strength, 100 current level hard cap agility, 100 current level hard cap. System prompt: all your base attributes have hit the maximum value permitted for your current level. You have unlocked the legendary achievement, Summit of All Races. A realm-wide system announcement will be broadcast across the source realm. Do you wish to anonymize your identity? A massive golden light curtain suddenly bloomed across the sky above Tianyuan City, stretching wide enough to nearly blanket the entire firmament. At that exact moment, a voice echoed inside the minds of every living being across the entire source realm. Source realm announcement notice. Congratulations to user for unlocking the achievement, Summit of All Races. You are the first entity in the recorded history of the Source Realm to attain this feat. This proclamation is issued for all races to witness and celebrate together. A deafening silence blanketed the Source Realm for an instant, followed by widespread shock and unrest. The Abyssal Royal Court, Endless Ocean. Within a grand palace forged from massive coral formations, a Naga queen with a human upper body and fishtail abruptly opened her eyes. She slammed her trident hard against the stone floor, sending violent tremors rippling through the entire palace. Summit of All Races. Her deep, commanding voice reverberated through the vast, empty hall. I have lived for 2,000 years, yet I have never once heard of this achievement being unlocked. Every attendant present knelt rigidly on the ground, none daring to utter a single word in response. The Naga queen slowly rose to her feet, her crimson hair flowing down her back like tangled seaweed. She walked toward a palace window, gazing upward through the thick seawater toward the lingering white glow etched across the sky. The glowing announcement text reflected sharply within her pupils. Heaven and earth themselves bear witness to this power, she murmured softly. Even the natural order has been stirred by this being. This expert's strength likely surpasses the 9th realm threshold. After a brief pause, she issued an imperial decree. Send word to all our clansmen waging wars abroad to pull back their battle lines immediately. No faction is to be provoked until we fully uncover the true identity of this supreme powerhouse. Frostwolf Plateau, Northern Territories. A Frostwolf king with a body the size of a small mountain lay perched atop an eternally frozen cliff, its silvery fur fluttering wildly in the bitter northern winds. It snapped open its ice-blue eyes, fixing its gaze southward and letting out a low, rumbling growl. The realm announcement continued to reverberate in its consciousness long after the broadcast ended. Summit of All Races. The Frostwolf King's rough, heavy tone resembled boulders crashing down a mountainside. I stand merely half a step away from the 10th realm. Yet I would never dare claim to stand atop all races. What origin does this mysterious entity possess? It stood upright, shaking snow from its thick coat before letting loose a long, resonant howl that echoed across the entire northern plateau. Every frostwolf within hearing range lifted their heads and howled in unison, creating a chorus of wolf cries that filled the plateau. The king fell silent, a flicker of wariness flashing across its gaze. Retreat all territorial outposts. No unprovoked incursions are permitted. It ordered the pack behind it. None shall cross our borders until we learn the truth behind this supreme being. A young frostwolf stepped forward in confusion. My king, the tiger clan is currently weakened. This would be the perfect window to expand our territory. Why must we pull back? The Frostwolf King lowered its head and swatted the young wolf hard, sending it tumbling into the snowdrifts. Do you dare question my ruling? And no, your majesty, I would never dare. Molten Abyss, Southern Wasteland. Churning crimson magma filled the depths of the abyss, rising heat warping the surrounding air. Deep within the chasm, a slumbering fire dragon slowly peeled open its vertical pupils, the celestial announcement glowing faintly reflected in its gaze. It yawned and exhaled a thick cloud of black smoke. Summit of all races. That legendary achievement has actually been claimed by a living creature. The bearer of this title is recognized as the nominal sovereign of the entire Source Realm. The dragon spoke in a lazy, gravelly tone, still half asleep. The ancient dominant races have grown complacent over the ages and long forgotten this ancient covenant. Still, this matters little to me. The dragon mumbled drowsily, closing its eyes once more. Whoever they are, just leave me in peace. With that, it sank back into deep slumber. Golden Sacred City, Western Desert. An elderly robed elder sat cross-legged inside a palace entirely cast from solid gold, his features gentle, with eyes lightly shut. A faint golden aura drifting around his form. His aura faltered for a split second the moment the realm announcement appeared. A shift felt by every living creature residing within the sacred city. Sovereign of the Source Realm. The elder's voice was calm and unreadable, neither warm nor cold. He opened his eyes, boundless starlight swirling deep within his irises. I would like to see if this newly proclaimed sovereign is truly worthy of such a lofty title. A golden spectral being materialized beside him and asked in a hushed voice, "My lord, shall we dispatch agents to investigate this entity?" The elder shook his head and closed his eyes again. There is no need. If they chose to conceal their name, no investigation we launch will uncover their identity. Before long, they will reveal themselves of their own accord. Heavenly Spire City, Human Imperial Territory. Inside the Heavenly Council Chamber, the seat of humanity's highest governing power, more than a dozen elderly figures sat around a massive round table. These elders formed humanity's supreme ruling council, each an eighth realm powerhouse representing the pinnacle of human combat strength. Yet these usually dignified, untouchable figures now wore grave, somber expressions. At the head of the table sat an elderly man with snow-white hair and beard, who spoke slowly. "All of you have witnessed the announcement, have you not?" No one offered a verbal reply, none was needed. The broadcast had reached every corner of the Source Realm without exception. This white-haired elder was Zhou Tianyan, chief elder of the Heavenly Council and the strongest known human alive. Standing at the peak of the Eighth Realm, with only a tiny barrier separating him from advancing to the Ninth Realm. Even so, a bitter undertone lingered in his voice as he spoke the two words. Summit of all races. Countless millennia have passed, and fewer than 5 beings have ever reached this apex across the Source Realm. Now another such entity has emerged. The balance of power within the Source Realm is certain to shift. An armored middle-aged general seated at the table replied in a grim tone. "I have ordered all 4 frontier legions to boost patrol readiness. We will report any abnormal movements from neighboring non-human races the instant they are detected. The danger is that we may receive those reports far too late to act." Zhou Tianyan tapped his fingers against the tabletop, producing dull thuds with each strike. The birth of a supreme non-human powerhouse may not directly threaten humanity, yet the chain reactions triggered by their existence could spell total ruin for our people. An elderly woman cloaked in black robes sighed heavily. Humanity already exists under constant pressure from surrounding powerful, non-human races. The arrival of this summit-level being will only make our already difficult circumstances far worse. A younger council member spoke up with obvious hesitation. "Is there a possibility that this entity who unlocked the summit of all races is one of our own human kin?" Bitter chuckles echoed around the round table. Zhou Tianyan shook his head without uttering a word, yet his expression spoke volumes. It was simply impossible. Humans were inherently frail in physique, an undeniable truth. Among all the myriad races of the Source Realm, humanity ranked near the bottom. The reason mankind had clung to survival for countless ages was never raw combat power, but the barren nature of human territory, so desolate that foreign races saw no value in expending troops to seize these lands. The odds of a human rising to become a top-tier powerhouse of all races were slimmer than picking up a divine artifact off a city street. "We need to focus on coping strategies first." Zhou Tianyan heaved a deep sigh and said in a solemn tone, "In my opinion, we must consolidate our territory right now and pull all border defenses back to the Lingnan region. If the situation worsens, we may even have to abandon the entire southern territory." A heavy silence blanketed the council hall. Abandoning the south meant humanity's current territorial span would shrink by a full third. Worse still, this lost portion held the most fertile and resource-abundant lands humans possessed. Already strapped for the resources required to nurture ninth-tier powerhouses, humanity's prospects would grow even bleaker moving forward. Inside Tianyuan City, Jiang Chuan stared blankly into the distance. He had never expected this achievement to trigger a realm-wide system announcement. That meant every single race across the Source Realm now knew what he had accomplished. Thankfully, he had concealed his identity. Otherwise, a giant hand might have descended from the heavens at any moment to crush him to dust on the spot. Peak of all races, what a magnet for hostility. Jiang Chuan tugged at the corner of his mouth. Still, completing this milestone came with exclusive rewards. First was a legendary tier title, Overlord of the Source Realm title rank, legendary effects passive. You stand as the sole sovereign of the Source Realm. While equipped, your HP increases by 1 million and MP rises by 1 million. You gain full immunity to realm suppression of any tier and the innate intimidation emanated by superior races. 1,000,000 health points. 1,000,000 mana points. Jiang Chuan pulled up his status panel. His health and mana bars had surged 1,000-fold, jumping from 4-digit values all the way to 7 digits. Guess I'm a walking damage sponge now, he muttered to himself, clenching his fists to feel the surging power coursing through his body. Even so, he understood pure bulk meant little against true elite foes. A single strike from a powerful warrior could deal hundreds of thousands of damage, rendering his 1,000,000 HP nothing more than an extra hit to tank. The true value of this title lay not in inflated health pools, but in its two supplementary passive abilities: immunity to realm suppression and immunity to superior racial intimidation. Realm suppression functioned on a simple principle. Even with matching stats, a second-tier professional would effortlessly overpower a first-tier counterpart purely due to their level gap. Racial intimidation was an even more crippling mechanic. Many higher races carried an innate mental pressure that left lesser races trembling and unable to lift their hands in combat. These two immunities erased Jiang Chuan's two biggest flaws: his low level and his status as a human. He could toggle the title's visual glow to remain hidden after equipping it. With a thought from Jiang Chuan, a brilliant golden flash flickered briefly above his head before vanishing entirely. His second reward was a special contract scroll, Nightmare Pact First Tier, Legendary. Apply to any first-tier dungeon to unlock its Nightmare difficulty challenge. Clear the trial to obtain exclusive rewards. I haven't even beaten the regular dungeon variant, and this thing wants me to jump straight into Nightmare mode? Jiang Chuan scratched his head in perplexity. Even so, the pact arrived at the perfect time. His stats had hit a hard cap, and leveling up was the only way to grow stronger. Dungeons were the optimal spot to slay monsters and earn experience. Nightmare difficulty would undoubtedly grant far more experience than standard runs. One glaring problem remained. Combat classes could only unlock their job skills upon reaching level 10. As a crafter specializing in item decomposition, Jiang Chuan possessed impressive attributes, yet no offensive abilities. He was reluctant to rely solely on his fists to beat down monsters. He was physically capable of doing so, his stats more than enough to one-shot ordinary creatures with bare hands. Yet the method felt terribly undignified. He resolved to purchase a proper weapon first. Jiang Chuan skipped the artisan pavilion. Though his spending had crossed the 1,000,000 credit threshold to grant him top-tier diamond membership, the pavilion exclusively stocked high-end armaments with no beginner gear suited for level 1 users. A visit there would only waste his time. He wandered the city streets until he spotted a modest weapon shop. A weathered wooden sign hung above the doorway, etched with the words, "Old Blacksmith's Armory." Wooden racks lined the storefront, lined with assorted swords and blades of every shape and size. Jiang Chuan stepped inside. A burly blacksmith worked at his anvil with his shirt discarded, sweat dripping down his spine as the clang of hammer striking metal rang sharply through the air. "I'm here to buy equipment," Jiang Chuan called out. The smith never lifted his gaze. "Browse at your leisure. Call me when you've picked what you want." Jiang Chuan paid him no mind and moved toward the display racks to examine the wares. Swords, sabers, spears, battle axes, every conventional melee weapon was neatly arranged in full supply. He hefted several pieces to test their weight and balance, before his gaze settled on a single-handed saber. The blade measured roughly 2 feet in length, its sharp edge glinting coldly. The hilt was wrapped in rough hemp cord for a secure grip, the weapon carrying a satisfying heft in his palm. "How much for this saber?" Jiang Chuan held the blade up to ask. The blacksmith finally raised his head. "That's a black iron grade single-edged saber forged from Polonia steel. 3,800 credits, firm price." 3,800 was a reasonable sum. Jiang Chuan had amassed nearly 300,000 credits in savings, making the cost negligible for him. Still, He reconsidered the idea of charging into monster combat wielding a melee blade. Close quarters fighting carried unnecessary risks. Creatures might spew fire or secrete deadly venom without warning. He set the saber down and walked over to the rack housing ranged weaponry. Longbows, crossbows, throwing darts, and short throwing spears filled the shelf space in equal variety. Jiang Chuan picked up a longbow carved from dark hardwood, its bowstring woven from the tendon of a wild beast native to this realm. He drew the string taut. It pulled with a minimum draw weight of 100 pounds, yet felt far too light for his current strength stat of 100 points. What's the price on this bow? Also black iron grade. Ranged arms cost a premium. I'll let you have it for 4,500 credits. How potent is its striking power? The blacksmith set down his hammer and fixed Jiang Chuan with a direct stare. What's your level and class? Level 1, Item Decomposer. A strange look crossed the smith's face instantly. A level 1 decomposer shopping for weapons to hunt monsters. Is there a rule against it? The blacksmith fell silent for 2 seconds before shaking his head helplessly. This bow has an effective range of 50 meters, enough to kill first-tier monsters cleanly. But decomposers rarely have the physical strength to draw a full longbow. You'd be better off picking a crossbow over there. It requires far less physical exertion. Jiang Chuan offered no reply. He knocked a test arrow onto the bowstring, took aim at a target nailed to the back wall of the shop's courtyard, and pulled the bow to its full draw before releasing his grip. The arrow sliced through the air with a shrill whistle, burying itself dead center in the target board. The arrow shaft hummed with residual vibration, piercing deep into the wood and splitting a crack across the earthen wall behind the target. The blacksmith gaped in stunned disbelief, his jaw hanging open wide enough to fit an entire egg. You're truly a decomposer? 100% genuine. Jiang Chuan lowered the bow with a satisfied nod. His years of archery hobby from his past life had never faded, even after over a decade of disuse. I'll take this bow, plus 200 iron arrowheads. Do you have stock available? Still dumbfounded, the smith nodded numbly and fetched 2 barrels of arrows from the back storage room. Along with the black iron longbow and 200 refined iron arrows, Jiang Chuan also purchased a full set of leather armor. The entire purchase totaled just over 30,000 credits. He slung the longbow across his back, slid 20 arrows into a waist-mounted quiver, and stepped out of the armory. Glancing at his reflection in the shop's glass window, he cut the figure of a bona fide combat professional clad in leather armor with bow and arrows at the ready. Can't hurt to carry a backup melee weapon for emergencies if monsters close the gap, Jiang Chuan reasoned, turning back into the shop to buy the black iron single-handed saber as well. Thick woodlands stretched across the southern city suburbs, marked by a roadside sign bearing 4 large characters, Tree Spirit Dungeon. A massive stone archway formed the dungeon entrance, thick ivy crawling across its stone surfaces to lend it an ancient, weathered appearance. A bustling crowd gathered around the portal. Newly awakened profession holders called out for teammates to form parties. Vendors peddled healing potions and travel rations. Life class players offered free equipment repair and decomposition services for passersby. The whole area was as lively as an open-air market. C-tier talent leading the party. Seeking D-tier or higher damage dealers, tanks and healers, dead weight need not apply. Premium healing potions for sale. No price is too high to preserve your life. Don't let frugality cost you your life out in the wilds. Hot roasted chicken skewers. A single skewer fully restores your satiety meter. Get yours while supplies last. Free equipment decomposition services. Come find me if you need gear broken down into raw materials. Jiang Chuan had researched the optimal leveling zones surrounding Tianyuan City, and this first-tier Tree Spirit dungeon was perfectly matched to his current level bracket. The dungeon was widely known across Tianyuan City not for formidable difficulty, but because it was low risk and beginner-friendly. Only one type of monster spawned within its bounds, tree spirits, ranging from level 1 to level 5. Slow-moving and possessing weak attack power, they served as ideal target practice for newly awakened adventurers. Countless rookie professionals flocked here each year to grind levels, occasionally looting low-tier equipment to sell for pocket change. For Jiang Chuan, however, the dungeon held greater significance. He held the Nightmare Pact, and applying it to this dungeon would elevate all monsters within to nightmare difficulty. Higher difficulty would surely boost loot quality and drop rates, not to mention the exclusive reward promised upon clearing the nightmare trial. I'll run the standard difficulty first to get a feel for the layout and enemies. Jiang Chuan settled on his plan. His fully outfitted appearance had already drawn plenty of curious stares from onlookers. He declined every party invitation sent his way and walked straight through the stone archway. System prompt. Do you wish to challenge the Tree Spirit Dungeon standard difficulty? Confirm. A burst of white light washed over his vision. When his sight cleared, he stood amid a dim, shadowy forest. Towering trees formed a dense canopy that blotted out most sunlight. Only thin streaks of golden light filtering through gaps in the leaves to cast dappled patterns across the forest floor. The air carried a damp, rotting musk mixed with a faint, sweet metallic tang. Jiang Chuan drew his hunting bow and nocked an arrow, advancing cautiously into the woods. He had barely walked a short distance when the bushes up ahead rustled violently. A thick tree branch stirred to life, writhing through the air like a venomous serpent. Moments later, a blurry facial shape surfaced on the tree trunk, two hollow eye sockets locking onto Jiang Chuan's position. Tree Spirit, LV.1 HP, 200 ATK, 25 Def, 20A Level 1 Tree Spirit. Jiang Chuan drew the bow fully taut and took aim at the distorted face carved into the tree's bark. He released the arrow, which rocketed forward to embed itself squarely in one of the spirit's hollow eyes. Dark green sap sprayed violently from the wound, and the tree spirit let out a shrill, pained wail as its entire wooden frame shuddered uncontrollably. A damage value floated upward above the creature's head. 378. The tree spirit's health bar emptied instantly. The trunk split open from within, scattering splinters and foliage across the ground in an explosive burst. Tree Spirit LV.1 eliminated. Experience gained, plus 15. Current level progress. LV.115 out of 1,067 total kills were required just to advance from level 1 to level 2. Level progression was far more tedious than he had anticipated. Jiang Chuan thanked his past archery experience for sparing him the hassle of slashing through each monster one by one with melee strikes. A single arrow was enough to finish each foe effortlessly. He stepped forward to inspect the monster's remains, finding no loot whatsoever. As he prepared to move onward, his footsteps halted abruptly when his gaze fell on the splintered tree stump. His Rule Tier talent, Universal Extraction, was not limited solely to disassembling man-made equipment. Item decomposition was merely one of its core functions. Could he use this ability to extract power directly from monster corpses? Jiang Chuan pressed his palm against the broken wood and activated Universal Extraction. A flash of golden light erupted outward. The tree spirit's remains vanished completely, and a warm stream of vital energy flooded into his body. Extraction successful. Strength +1. Your strength attribute has hit the soft cap for your current level. Excess absorbed energy is converted into experience points instead. Experience +100. Current level progress. LV.1115 out of 1,000. Jiang Chuan's eyes widened in shock. A basic level 1 monster granted a permanent attribute boost equivalent to dismantling 2 separate pieces of black iron equipment. He quickly deduced the difference. Extracting living monster corpses granted permanent stat increases with no raw material yield, while breaking down gear produced crafting materials alongside minor attribute gains. For his own purposes, permanent stat growth was infinitely more valuable than spare crafting supplies. Even unarmed, his amplified stats would eventually make him strong enough to overwhelm any foe in the Source Realm. Filled with renewed excitement, Jiang Chuan pressed deeper into the forest. Tree spirits grew more numerous along his path, yet none stood a chance against his precision archery. Every arrow found its mark and annihilated the target in one hit. The bonus experience provided by Universal Extraction accelerated his leveling drastically. It was not long before a level-up notification triggered. A ring of golden light wrapped around his body. Jiang Chuan immediately felt a drastic surge in overall combat prowess. Pulling open his status panel left him stunned. Upon leveling up, his base attribute growth was not the standard 1 point for F-tier professionals, nor the theoretical maximum of 10 points for SSS tier talents. He gained a full 100 points distributed across every single attribute per level. A flat 100 universal attribute points per level up was wildly overpowered. He finally grasped the true meaning behind his talent's name, Extremity. It referenced not a hard cap on individual stats, but an absolute maximum for attribute growth rates reserved exclusively for the most dominant beings within the Source Realm. Jiang Chuan's overall attributes had effectively doubled, pushing his raw attack power above 400. Combined with his black iron longbow, monster kills became even more trivial. He also discovered that the level up removed the temporary cap on attribute extraction. Harvesting tree spirit corpses now granted random permanent boosts to strength and constitution respectively. After slaying hundreds of tree spirits, he had yet to reach level 3. Though his strength sat at 261 points and his constitution at 253 points. Even the strongest level 5 tree spirits within the dungeon only possessed 1,000 HP. A well-placed arrow to a critical weak point reduced them to splinters as easily as tearing paper. His experience bar filled at a staggering pace, and another golden level-up aura enveloped his frame soon after. Congratulations! You have reached level 3. Constitution plus 100 intelligence, plus 100 strength, plus 100 agility, plus 100. Each stacked attribute upgrade elevated his physical capabilities across the board. He needed to exercise extreme caution, drawing his bow for fear of snapping the black iron weapon under his amplified strength. A casual leap sent him soaring 15 meters into the air with minimal effort. He quickly realized his leather armor had become redundant protection. His natural flesh and skin were now tougher than forged black iron plating. This is absurd, Jiang Chuan muttered in awe. Standard S-class combat professionals only reached 300 total combined attributes upon advancing to the 4th tier, while he had already crossed that threshold at merely level 3. By level 10, his base stats would likely surpass even 9th-tier powerhouses. He acknowledged the gaps separating him from high-tier combatants extended far beyond raw numerical stats. Superior equipment, specialized combat skills, and formal class advancement were all critical components of power he had yet to obtain. Stats were the most superficial layer of combat strength, but his abnormal growth rate ensured sheer quantity would eventually overwhelm all qualitative disadvantages. Only the final zone of the dungeon remained uncleared. Jiang Chuan ventured further inward until the dense trees thinned out into a wide, open clearing. A colossal ancient tree towered at the clearing's center, 3 to 4 times larger than every other plant in the vicinity. Its trunk coated in thick moss and tangled vines with a canopy that blotted out all overhead sunlight. A massive, aged facial structure manifested across the tree's trunk, its twin glowing crimson eyes burning like lanterns as it fixed its gaze on Jiang Chuan. A low, rumbling roar vibrated through the ground beneath his feet. Ancient Tree Spirit Dungeon Boss, LV.5 HP, 5000 ATK, 120 def, 60 the final boss of the standard dungeon run. A party of well-equipped level 5 professionals would normally be required to take this entity down safely. Against Jiang Chuan, it only required a handful of arrows. 5,000 total health would drop to 0 in 7 shots with his current damage output. Jiang Chuan drew his longbow and loosed an arrow straight into the boss's trunk. 748. A massive chunk of the tree spirit's health bar vanished instantly. Enraged, the boss unleashed a horde of thorny vines that burst upward from the soil, snaking toward Jiang Chuan to bind his limbs. He stepped backward twice to effortlessly evade every incoming vine strike, then knocked another arrow. 755. A third arrow followed immediately after. 761. 3 shots cut the boss's health nearly in half. Though the vines multiplied rapidly, their movement speed was far too sluggish to catch up to Jiang Chuan's heightened agility. He stepped back into a stable firing stance, drew the bow to its absolute maximum draw weight, and released the projectile with a sharp whoosh. The arrow pierced straight into the gaping maw carved into the ancient tree's face, triggering a critical strike. Critical hit, 1412. One final arrow erased the last remnants of the boss's health pool. The aged facial carving froze rigidly before the entire massive trunk imploded and shattered violently. Wood splinters and leaves billowed outward across the clearing like a swirling green storm. Ancient Tree Spirit Boss LV.5 eliminated. Experience gained. Plus 500 Tree Spirit Dungeon Standard Difficulty cleared for the first time. Bonus experience. Plus 2,000 congratulations. You have reached level 4. At level 4, his highest strength attribute was already approaching 500 points. Jiang Chuan exhaled slowly, stowing his bow before walking over to the shattered remains of the dungeon boss. The first dungeon clear had rewarded a few worthless white tier pieces of gear, which he decomposed without a second thought. He rubbed his palms together, curious what rewards extracting a boss-grade monster corpse might yield. He laid both hands onto the fractured trunk fragments and activated his decomposition ability. Blinding golden light flooded the entire clearing. A powerful surge of primal energy rushed up his arms and flooded his body, accompanied by a system notification echoing in his mind. Extraction successful. New talent acquired. Precision Marksmanship E tier. Would you like to absorb this talent immediately? A talent. He could harvest talents directly from monster corpses with universal extraction. This ability was far more overpowered than he initially imagined. He selected the confirmation option without hesitation. A vivid emerald glow bloomed in the palm of his hand. Something was wrenched free from the wreckage and merged into his body. Talent absorption successful. Precision shot grade E precision shot. Passive. When wielding ranged weapons. Hit rate +15. Crit rate +5. Rule grade universal extraction. Grade F intermediate decomposition. Grade E precision shot. The three talents rested quietly on his status panel. A slow grin tugged at Jiang Chuan's lips. A grade E talent was nothing spectacular, yet it arrived as a much-needed lifeline in his current predicament. As a pure decomposer with no combat skills save basic attacks, that 15-hit bonus and 5 crit boost might seem trivial on paper. But for him, it translated directly into tangible damage gains. This was merely the beginning. If he could siphon talents from boss monsters, then higher-tier bosses would surely yield grade D, C, B, even grade A and S talents. The Divine Tree Secret Realm was only a low-tier instance. Its bosses could never surpass this level of strength. The Source World boasted countless realms dozens or even hundreds of times more advanced. What was more, he held the means to unlock a nightmare-tier secret realm right this instant. A flash of white light teleported Jiang Chuan out of the instance. He stood before the stone archway, squinting to adjust to the outdoor brightness. The surrounding area remained bustling as ever. Several teams that had previously tried to recruit him spotted his figure. They had yet to finish assembling their rosters while he had already cleared the dungeon once. Their leveling efficiency paled in comparison to his. Seeing him exit the dungeon so abruptly, the group assumed he had failed the challenge and given up. And mocking jeers immediately erupted. Look who it is, the lone wolf who thought he was too good for our parties. Couldn't last long in there after all. He only had decent gear to prop himself up. No one beats a dungeon without teammates. Cut him some slack, at least he had the sense to retreat instead of dying inside. Loud laughter echoed through the crowd. Jiang Chuan swept his gaze over the jeering adults. Having awakened their powers for years, yet still trapped within first-tier secret realms, their bitter resentment was hardly surprising. Wasting energy clashing with such people was pointless. He walked toward the rows of stalls run by life-class professionals selling all manner of goods. He bought a piping hot roasted chicken to replenish his stamina, along with 4 additional buckets of iron arrows. Arrows were disposable ammunition. Archers had always been elite combat units in cold eras largely because ordinary folk could never afford the constant cost of arrow replacements. A single iron arrow sold for 20 currency units, and the arrows he'd used clearing the normal Divine Tree instance equaled a full month of his parents' combined income. Now that he possessed decent wealth of his own, he saw no reason to skimp on supplies. While resting, Jiang Chuan pulled up his character panel for inspection. Jiang Chuan level. LV 4 HP. 1004/620 MP. 1004/600 Constitution. 462 Wisdom. 400 Strength. 472 Agility. 400 Talents. Universal Extraction, Intermediate Decomposition, Precision Shot. With his 472 Strength stat boosted further by his Black Iron Bow, his total panel attack value had broken past 1,000 points. If I cannot beat the nightmare difficulty with these stats, no one can, Jiang Chuan muttered to himself. He pulled the nightmare contract, a pitch-black parchment that looked eerie beneath sunlight, from his inventory. Activate. At his mental command, the contract vanished from his grasp, dissolving into a stream of black light that surged into the stone archway. The arch shuddered faintly at first, then shook violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across its vine-covered stone surfaces, oozing an eerie dark crimson luminescence. All players nearby paused their activities, staring in confused alarm. What's happening to the secret realm? I've never witnessed anything like this before. Look at the inscription carved above the arch. Jiang Chuan lifted his eyes. The 4 ancient characters etched across the arch were being corroded, their strokes bleeding dark red before rearranging into 4 new words: Primal Tree Realm. A frigid gust billowed out from the arch, thick with the stench of rot and decay. The wind washed straight over Jiang Chuan's skin, sharp and icy as countless fine needles pricking his flesh. Still, he did not step back and instead advanced 1 pace forward. Prompt. Accept challenge. Primal Tree Realm Nightmare difficulty? Accept. White light swallowed Jiang Chuan's figure, dragging him into the archway. Shortly after Jiang Chuan vanished into the realm, dozens of flying vessels descended overhead. Hundreds of soldiers flooded the plaza and cordoned off the entire area. A robed middle-aged man stepped forward first, draped in purple garments with an air of regal authority that demanded deference without him uttering a word. This was Lu Qingshan, city lord of Tianyuan City. Rumors claimed he had reached the seventh realm long ago, stalled only by a shortage of critical cultivation resources that barred his ascent to the eighth realm and entry into the heavenly pavilion. Powerful auras materialized one after another beside him. An alluring woman, a young man wearing glasses, and a gaunt elderly man. Lu Qingshan fixed the group with a grave expression. Why has this stable secret realm mutated out of nowhere? Has such an event ever been recorded? None that we know of. The bespectacled young man shook his head. Yet this development bodes nothing good. The woman, her features veiled beneath sheer gauze, tilted her head in puzzlement. Master Zhou, why would you say that? Higher realm difficulty yields richer resources. This should be a favorable change. She glanced toward the gaunt elder standing nearby. The elder was Chun Duhu, commander-in-chief of the Dark Moon Combat Legion. His faction controlled Tianyuan City's sole master-tier secret realm, the Silver Wolf Domain. A coveted asset even for the woman who managed most of the city's trade and wealth as pavilion master of the Artisan Pavilion. Zhou Yuan pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose and shook his head. Pavilion Master Yuan, you misunderstand the fundamental nature of secret realms. These domains are dimensional projections cast by foreign worlds onto the source world. As illusory projections, they reset fully once cleared, and their native monsters cannot cross into our plane permanently. Hard and Master Tier instances are valuable assets without risk, but Nightmare difficulty is an entirely different matter. A Nightmare-ranked secret realm tiers open a stable physical gateway leading straight into the real foreign world. Hostile creatures native to that plane could pour through at any moment to invade our lands. Yuan Ziqing's face paled as she grasped the gravity of the situation. Countless powerful races populated the source world's myriad planes, any moderately strong species capable of wiping out humanity with ease. If this mutated realm became an incursion gateway, Tianyuan City would face total annihilation. Nightmare-tier realms have not manifested within our borders for decades, Chen Duhu said in a heavy tone. Its sudden reappearance may signal the dawn of a catastrophic event. Lu Qingshan frowned. Could this tie into the emergence of the being who claimed the title peak of all races? Most ordinary inhabitants of the source world mistakenly believe the title belonged to a newly ascended 10th Order Supreme Powerhouse, misled by the name itself. Chen Duhu sighed. Whether this event brings fortune or ruin for humanity is impossible to judge for now. What course of action should we take? Yuan Ziqing pressed anxiously. Remain calm, Pavilion Master Yuan, Zhou Yuan replied calmly. We detected the mutation early enough. Sealing the realm completely will block the nightmare incursion entirely. Yuan Zi could not calm herself. Her family's entire fortune and legacy were rooted within Tianyuan City. If the city became a beachhead for alien invaders, everything her clan had built would be destroyed. Then we must seal the gateway immediately, she urged. Zhou Yuan turned toward Lu Qingshan. This secret realm falls under Tianyuan City jurisdiction. The final call to seal it rests with you, City Lord. Lu Qingshan sank into quiet contemplation before speaking. The mutation struck without warning. Many cultivators may still be trapped inside the instance. A full seal would trap them permanently within the foreign plane. Zhou Yuan nodded. That is correct. Once the dimensional channel closes, stranded cultivators will be stranded in the alien world for good. Their survival will depend entirely on their own luck and the disposition of the native life forms there. These are merely first-tier cultivators, Chen Duhu argued sternly. Even if we sacrifice their lives, the safety of the entire city takes precedence. You must not hesitate. Lu Qingshan refused to concede. Every cultivator within Tianyuan is my citizen. As city lord, I cannot abandon my people. He issued his decision firmly. Grant them 30 more minutes. After half an hour passes, anyone who has not evacuated will have chosen to brave the nightmare's horrors of their own volition. Their fates will be of their own making. Zhou Yuan nodded approvingly. Your devotion to your people honors Tianyuan greatly. Bathed in crimson radiance, Jiang Chuan floated amid a landscape resembling an ocean of blood. It took a long moment before solid ground reformed beneath his feet. He opened his eyes and froze on the spot. The landscape bore no resemblance whatsoever to the normal version of the divine tree realm. The standard instance featured a dim woodland with dense living foliage shrouding the sky, gloomy yet teeming with faint signs of life. This so-called tree realm was closer to a colossal graveyard. Dead giant trees stretched endlessly across the terrain, their bare, twisted branches clawing upward toward the heavens like withered limbs. The ground was pitch black and spongy underfoot, akin to treading atop layers of rotting flesh. A thick putrid stench hung heavy in the air, clinging to throats and stirring waves of nausea with every breath. What truly stunned Jiang Chuan was the massive silhouette visible deep within the woodland's heart. It loomed like a mountain range, its gray outlines stretching for countless kilometers across the horizon, casting the entire nightmare forest under its shadow. Jiang Chuan narrowed his eyes and studied the shape closely before identifying its true form, a single tree of unfathomable scale. The ancient giant stood long dead. Its trunk was riddled with cracks and hollow cavities, forming a structure akin to an excavated mountain mass, bleak and desolate beneath the murky sky. The nightmare difficulty truly reshapes the entire environment, Jiang Chuan murmured to himself, unaware he had stepped foot into an entirely unknown foreign plane. He steadied his breathing and marched deeper into the forest. Monsters native to the nightmare realm emerged shortly after. A nightmare treant, twice the size of ordinary treants, burst out from behind a dead trunk. Jagged fissures split its wooden torso, oozing dark crimson sap that mimicked fresh blood. A warped human-like face sat at its core, paired with two glowing scarlet eyes blazing with ferocity. Nightmare treant, LV5 HP, 3000 ATK, 250 def, 120. Jiang Chuan raised an eyebrow. Its health pool was triple that of a level 5 normal treant, alongside fully enhanced offensive and defensive stats. Such foes would be a genuine nightmare for average players. A tough fight even against a single specimen. For Jiang Chuan, it only meant landing 3 shots instead of 1. He drew his longbow and loosed an arrow straight into the treant's facial core. 956. The treant screeched in agony. One scarlet eye snuffed out instantly. Yet it charged forward, swinging its branch limbs in a furious assault. Jiang Chuan sidestepped the attack and fired a second arrow. 887. A third shot followed instantly. 942. 3 arrows drained the treant's health completely. Its body imploded violently, scattering splintered wood across the decaying soil in a far more brutal demise than ordinary treants suffered. Nightmare treant LV5 Slang. EXP plus 150. Nightmare instances granted 10 times the experience of normal difficulty per kill. A single nightmare treant equaled defeating 10 standard treants, and the efficiency brought a satisfied nod to Jiang Chuan's face. He knelt and pressed his palm against the treant's shattered remains. Activate Universal Extraction. A blazing golden light burst outward, surging warm energy through every fiber of his body as his pores hummed with relief. Extraction successful. Strength plus 4. Standard level 5 treants only granted 2 attribute points upon extraction. Nightmare variants doubled the reward entirely. Excellent. Jiang Chuan licked his lips, sharp excitement gleaming in his eyes. His sole wish was for these nightmare monsters to be endless targets for his hunts. Small numbers would never satisfy his urge to grow stronger. He pressed onward without pause. Groups of nightmare treants, solitary wanderers, and occasional oversized elite variants with health pools exceeding 10,000 points appeared along his path. Their stats amplified drastically. None endured more than 5 arrows from his bow. Experience values skyrocketed nonstop, without pause. Before long, a pillar of golden light crashed down to envelop his entire figure. Congratulations. You have leveled up to LV5. Constitution plus 100, Wisdom plus 100, Strength plus 100, Agility plus 100. Another flat 100 points distributed across all base stats pushed his 4 core attributes past the 500 threshold, with Strength and Constitution breaking 700 each. He continued inward, slaughtering foes, extracting residual energy, and leveling rapidly. LV6, LV7, LV8. Every level granted a full 100 points to each attribute, a growth rate so explosive it felt surreal even to Jiang Chuan himself. Upon reaching level 8, all 4 stats crossed 800 points, with Constitution and Strength hitting a new soft cap limit. Extraction successful. Constitution plus 4. Your Constitution stat has reached the first tier hard cap. Extracted energy may be converted into experience points, or converted into other attributes at 50% efficiency. The hard cap for the first tier sat at 1,500 attribute points. No living being, regardless of race, could exceed this numerical ceiling within levels 1 through 10. Without hesitation, Jiang Chuan chose to allocate the converted energy toward wisdom and agility. Farming experience was a trivial task, while permanent attribute growth held irreplaceable value. Even with half conversion efficiency, each monster kill still netted 2 attribute points, a highly respectable rate of improvement. After slaying countless nightmare treants, Jiang Chuan finally reached the deepest core of the nightmare woodland. He halted his footsteps, drew a deep breath, and took in the scene laid out before him, far more breathtaking than anything he had imagined. The colossal tree he had spotted from afar now towered directly in front of him at close range, its scale beyond comprehension. Its trunk stretched kilometers in diameter, its sprawling branches blotting out the entire sky above, while roots burrowed deep underground, as if piercing through the very crust of this world. This was no living tree. Dead and desiccated, its bark faded to ash gray without a single leaf or trace of green life. The entire entity radiating an overwhelming aura of death. Massive red fleshy growths dotted the canyon-sized crevices across its bark and branches, varying in size from small house-sized masses to hill-scale bulges clustered thickly across the trunk and boughs, clinging tightly like blood-gorged parasites. A shudder of revulsion ran through Jiang Chuan, and a question surfaced unbidden in his mind. Could these strange growths be the source of the ancient tree's demise? As he drew near, the monster's stats window promptly popped up before his eyes. Tree Blight Boss, Nightmare, LV10, HP, 500,000, ATK, 5,000, Def, 2,500,000 health points, paired with 5,000 attack power far exceeded the combat threshold any first-order professional could possibly withstand. Fortunately, its defensive stat was fairly low, sitting at only 200. After Jiang Chuan raised his strength to 1,500 points and received stat bonuses from his iron longbow, his total attack value climbed to 3,026. I can take this fight. Jiang Chuan drew a deep breath and knocked his arrow, his gaze sharpening into a blade's edge. The arrow sliced through the air and slammed hard into one of the swollen fleshy growths covering the ancient tree. 2,789. A deafening crack echoed out as the growth burst apart, releasing a surge of dark green corrosive fluid. The skeletal remains of the ancient sacred tree shuddered violently, sending tremors rippling across the entire basin floor. In the next instant, every fleshy tumor ruptured simultaneously. Countless pitch-black, grotesquely warped tree men scrambled out from the broken tissue in swarms. Some bore 7 or 8 limbs, resembling humanoid centipedes. Others sported 3 hideous faces that wailed in shrill, piercing unison. The rest were covered head to toe in rotating eyeballs, each pupil brimming with unadulterated malice. They screeched and howled, surging toward Jiang Chuan like an unstoppable tide. Bring it on. No flicker of fear crossed Jiang Chuan's features, only blazing excitement. There were far too many foes to pick off with arrows in time. He made a split-second decision, slinging the longbow over his back and yanking a refined steel single-edged sword from his waist to charge headlong into the monster horde. He swung his blade downward. 3,105. The three-faced treeman leading the charge was cleanly sliced in two from crown to pelvis, dark green bodily fluid splattering across the ground. He spun on his heel and struck a second blow. 2,987. Forearms belonging to a 7-limbed treeman were severed clean off with the crisp ease of chopping firewood. Jiang Chuan cut a bloody path through the mob. Every slash carried earth-shattering force, turning the treeman's iron-hard flesh as fragile as paper. He fought with no formal swordsmanship techniques or fancy combat skills, only pure, blistering speed and overwhelming weight behind each strike. Every single swing cleaved a monster apart entirely. Dark green fluid soaked his skin and face. Gripping his nicked, battered blade, Jiang Chuan looked every inch an undefeated war god forged from oceans of blood. His maxed-out constitution stat of 1,500 granted him near-limitless stamina. The longer he fought, the more fired up he grew, feeling no hint of exhaustion whatsoever. Eventually, the endless swarm of monsters thinned to nothing. 10 minutes later, the final distorted treeman let out a dying scream and collapsed to the ground. Jiang Chuan stood tall amid a mountain of mangled corpses and pooling bodily fluids. His iron longsword was lined with jagged gashes, barely holding together. Every fleshy growth had burst open, and the massive tree trunk was crisscrossed with cracks that glowed dim crimson from within, akin to a fading, beating heart on its last legs. Jiang Chuan sheathed his damaged sword and raised his bow once more, fitting his final arrow to the string and taking aim. His eyes were calm as stagnant water, yet sharp enough to pierce the clouds. Whoosh! The arrow streaked forward, piercing the widest fissure on the trunk and burying itself deep within the tree's core. 3,184. The colossal ancient tree shuddered violently, as if releasing a weary sigh after eons of torment. The crimson light glowing within the trunk's fractures winked out completely. The entire skeletal structure began to crumble from the inside out. Trunks thick as mountains shattered into massive boulders, and branches stretching for miles snapped into countless fragments. Rather than crashing down to the ground, all the broken debris hovered mid-air and slowly drifted upward, guided by an invisible hand towards some unknown destination high above the sky. At that very moment, a flood of system alerts blared non-stop inside Jiang Chuan's mind. Defeated Tree Blight Boss, Nightmare, LV10. EXP plus 50,000. Cleared Primordial Tree Realm Nightmare difficulty. EXP plus 200,000. Level up. Current level, LV9. Level up. Current level, LV10. Warning, you have hit your current level cap. Excess EXP will be stored and fully restored once you break through the cap. Bright golden light erupted where the boss had fallen, with several glowing golden items dropping onto the soil. Golden tier equipment. Jiang Chuan's eyes lit up instantly. A single piece of golden tier gear sold for hundreds of thousands, even millions of currency at the Artificer Pavilion. Yet this nightmare boss had dropped 3 or 4 pieces in one go. One bow stood out far more than the rest, its sleek, sharp frame shimmering with flowing luminous energy. Heart pounding rapidly, Jiang Chuan rushed forward to pick it up. Sun Piercer Bow Golden Grade, LV.10 attack, 179-198, attack speed plus 35, critical rate plus 25 unique trait. Rainbow Sun Pierce active. Fires a piercing arrow that deals 1100 linear penetration damage to all enemies along its path. Cooldown, for hours. Incredible. Comparing this divine golden bow to his old iron longbow, the latter might as well have been a useless fire poker. He equipped the Sun Piercer bow without hesitation and collected the remaining 2 golden pieces of equipment. Though they served no use for his build, they would fetch a massive fortune when resold to the Artificer Pavilion. But the true greatest reward lay ahead. Jiang Chuan's gaze drifted toward the boss's shattered remains and the broken wreckage of the colossal divine tree itself. Even in death, this tree possessed an unimaginably high order of existence. Can I extract power from this? He swallowed hard, stepping toward a massive trunk fragment and pressing his palm against its surface. Golden light washed over his body, and a system notification popped into view, causing Jiang Chuan's pupils to blow wide open. Detectable extractable talent identified. ESSS rank, unique. Absorb immediately. ESSS rank 1 star passive effect 1. All your ranged attacks ignore enemy defense and maximum effective range, and are guaranteed to hit their target. Passive effect 2. Every attack deals bonus damage equal to 10 of the target's maximum HP. Lore. The divine bow wielded by the mythical god who shot down the suns fell to the mortal world and took root as this sacred tree, birthing an independent dimension. This realm ultimately perished amid the great apocalyptic calamity. Holy hell! Jiang Chuan was stunned as if struck by lightning. He had expected a powerful reward, yet nothing this overpowered crossed his mind. An SSS rank talent would draw the full attention of humanity's highest governing councils if awakened during the standard talent awakening ritual. Its effects were utterly broken. Unblockable damage, unlimited range, guaranteed hits, plus extra percentage-based health damage with every shot. Excluding buffs from his realm sovereign title, Jiang Chuan's current HP rested at 15,000 points, meaning each arrow dealt an extra 1,500 unmitigated damage. Stacking his title bonuses pushed that bonus damage up to a staggering 100,000 true damage per strike. With this talent, he had essentially turned himself into a living anti-material rifle. Any target he marked was doomed. He was practically invincible now. Absorb it, he roared internally without a shred of doubt. An overwhelming wave of golden radiance burst forth from the tree wreckage, surging toward him like an unstoppable tidal wave. Meanwhile, the entire tree realm began to convulse violently. The ground caved in, mountain-sized tree roots tore free from the earth, and the sky split open to unleash raging void currents carrying destructive power. The sacred tree formed the very foundation of this dimension. Now that Jiang Chuan had claimed its core power, the realm was doomed to total annihilation. Jiang Chuan opened his eyes and stared at the collapsing world around him with no lingering attachment. He had claimed every valuable reward the place had to offer, so there was no reason to stay. He selected the exit command the instant before the dimension fully disintegrated. Outside the secret realm, less than 5 minutes remained before the 30-minute deadline Lu Qingshan had set. Chen Duhu let out a yawn, his heavy eyelids drooping halfway shut. This has dragged on long enough. An old man like me can't keep waiting around for you youngsters. Zhou Yuan checked his wristwatch. 4.5 minutes left. Yuan Zi was far more anxious than the others. Nearly everyone who could escape has already exited by now, City Lord Lu. We should seal off the secret realm entrance immediately. Lu Qingshan hesitated for a moment. Very well, we shall. A deafening boom cut through his sentence. The four people snapped their heads toward the secret realm's gateway. The stone archway crisscrossed with crimson fissures was crumbling apart entirely. Zhou Yuan sprinted forward, face etched with disbelief. The secret realm collapsed on its own. How is this possible? Thousands of miles away, Jiang Chuan tumbled through free fall, utterly confused by the distorted teleport coordinates caused by the realm's collapse. Shit! He crashed headfirst into a thick bush. His formidable physical constitution kept him from sustaining injuries, though his already damaged leather armor was torn to shreds by the sharp branches. He spat dirt from his mouth and clambered out of the underbrush, staring blankly at the unfamiliar landscape. Where on earth am I? He spun a full 360 degrees to survey his surroundings. An endless stretch of woodland spread out before him, backed by rolling mountain ranges in the distance. No official roads, trail markers, or signs of human life were anywhere to be seen. Teleportation malfunctions are really a thing? Jiang Chuan pulled up his digital map interface, only to see a blank void across the entire display. His current location lay outside the signal coverage of Tianyuan City and likely beyond the formal territorial borders of human civilization entirely. Just my luck. Still, Jiang Chuan felt no real panic. With his current stats, few creatures short of apex-tier powerful beings posed any real threat to his safety. His only pressing issue was that he had packed no food or fresh water for a long-distance journey. I'll first figure out my bearings, then work out a way back to Tianyuan. He oriented himself, recalling Tianyuan City lay to the south, and set off in that direction. After walking for roughly 30 minutes, the tree cover thinned out, and the sound of running water drifted to his ears. He quickened his pace through the last line of trees and stepped out into a clearing before a river. The waterway spanned roughly 20 meters wide with a gentle current, crystal clear enough to see smooth pebbles and small fish swimming along the riverbed. Glancing down at his blood-caked, tattered clothes and sticky, grimy skin, the stench of dried gore washed over him sharply now that the adrenaline of battle faded. Perfect timing for a wash. He stripped off his tattered garments and waded naked into the river. The water held a pleasantly mild temperature, washing away the grime and the heavy weariness of his brutal fight. Jiang Chuan sighed in relief, splashing water over his body and dunking his head fully beneath the surface to clean his hair. Midway through washing, his sharp senses picked up distant sounds of conflict. Splashing water alerted him instantly. Jiang Chuan lifted his head above the river surface to pinpoint the noise source, a flicker of hope rising in his chest. Fighting nearby, there are other people around here. On an open stretch of riverbank, several human corpses lay strewn across the ground with fresh, wet blood soaking into the soil in stark, alarming stains. Two groups stood locked in a tense standoff in the clearing. 3 human professional warriors, 2 young men and 1 young woman clad in matching dark blue uniform, stood back to back in a defensive triangular formation, wounded and pale, preparing for their final stand. Facing them were 7 or 8 humanoid beasts with compact builds shorter than average humans, covered in coarse taupe fur, with clawed hands and feet, and feline heads complete with vertical slit pupils and pointed ears, plus swaying cat-like tails. These were the Bloodcat clan, one of the myriad non-human races of the Source Realm. Their territories bordered human lands, making them one of humanity's most persistent external threats. Bloodcats excelled at extreme agility. Individual members were not overwhelmingly strong, yet their high reproduction rate made swarms of them notoriously difficult to handle. Oddly enough, a human male stood among the hostile Bloodcats, dressed in the identical dark blue uniform as the besieged trio, arms folded across his chest with a cold smirk tugging at his lips. The Bloodcats, natural enemies of humanity, showed him zero hostility whatsoever. The young man's gaze fixed firmly on the trapped group, lingering longest on the teenage girl among them. The girl appeared 16 or 17 years old with a delicate oval face, fair skin, and striking almond eyes. Her eyes red-rimmed, lips clamped tight, while her whole frame trembled with tension. Su Yinin, stop resisting, the young man spoke in a mocking tone. Your struggles are meaningless. Submit to my contractual bond, and I will make your suffering far more bearable. Su Yinin gritted her teeth, voice shaking with rage. Lin Yueming, you've lost your mind. Colluding with foreign races and murdering your fellow academy students. Even your influential Lin household cannot shield you once this crime comes to light. Come to light. Lin Yueming laughed, his tone deceptively gentle, yet cruelly cold. Who will live to tell the tale? You? Or your two dying companions? Once you become my contractual subordinate, you won't even harbor the urge to report me. He locked eyes with the girl in assured confidence. My talent is Oath of Kingship. Though only a rank, its rarity rivals many SSS rank abilities. Form this bond with me, and we will share each other's stat bonuses. With your S rank talent paired with mine, we will both climb toward the peak of power one day. You're a ruthless monster. Su Yinyin snarled. Oath of Kingship was an exceptionally rare talent. While graded only a rank, it allowed the user to forge binding contracts with other professionals, to mutually share attribute values and talent abilities. In exchange, the contracted person became a lifelong subordinate completely unable to defy the contractor's will. No warrior possessing S rank or higher talent would ever willingly submit themselves to become bound to an A rank user. Subordination in this contract amounted to nothing short of forced servitude. Su Yinyin had firmly rejected Lin Yueming's advances back at their academy. She had hoped he would abandon his fixation, yet he had grown far more reckless instead. During this field expedition, he had gone so far as to collude with hostile non-human creatures and murder their classmates, just to force her into the binding contract. I would rather die than let you succeed. Su Yinyin snapped fiercely. Lin Yueming's eyes turned icy cold, a malicious smirk spreading across his face. Stubborn till the very end. That only makes breaking your resolve more satisfying. Do you remember your friend Qin Yufei? She put on the same defiant front once, yet begged desperately for mercy in her final moments. I have no intention of killing you, though. So Yufei's disappearance was your doing. Hot tears spilled down Su Yinin's cheeks. You bastard. One of the two surviving male companions roared in fury, raising his sword to charge forward, only to be restrained forcefully by his ally. Don't act recklessly. He's goading you on purpose. Charging out there is a guaranteed death sentence. I refuse to die with this humiliation. Then I will grant you your wish. Lin Yueming ordered coldly with a wave of his hand. The surrounding Bloodcat assassins lunged into action. One feinted a frontal strike to create an opening, while a second Bloodcat darted forward with inhuman speed, slashing its claws clean across the man's throat. Blood spilled into the river, spreading a broad scarlet stain across the water's surface. Song Quan, the second young man, suffered an even crueler fate. Lin Yueming spared his life temporarily, using him as leverage against Su Yinyin. 4 Bloodcats circled him, slashing his limbs repeatedly in drawn-out, torturous torment, mimicking a cat playing with its prey. Lin Yueming watched with a cruel grin. Su Yinyin, this is your final choice. Sign the contract willingly, and I will grant him a swift, painless death. Refuse, and this torment will drag on endlessly. He gestured toward the captive warrior. A scream tore from the young man as one of his arms was torn clean from his shoulder. He glared at Lin Yueming with bloodshot eyes, screaming curses. Lin Yueming, you fiend. I will curse you for all eternity. Lin Yueming glanced at him indifferently. Still clinging to your pride? Tear out his vocal cords. Stop. Su Yinyin tightened her grip on her short sword until her knuckles whitened. Her heart wrenched with sorrow, unable to watch her companion suffer endless agony for her sake. Spare Huangyi. I will. I'd suggest you hold off on that decision. A voice drifted out from behind the reed thicket, cutting off Su Yinin's unfinished sentence. Every head twisted toward the sound as a damp head peeked out from the reeds. Jiang Chuan stood bare-chested, water droplets streaming down his defined musculature. His lower body barely covered by tattered strips of cloth to preserve decency. He wore an exasperated expression as he spoke. Fight all you want, but don't dump corpses into the river. You'll harm the fish and aquatic life living here. Even if the wildlife isn't hurt, have some basic consideration for the surrounding environment. I just cleaned myself up thoroughly in this water. Lin Yueming's mocking smile froze on his face, quickly morphing into a scowl. Where did this wild man crawl out from? Jiang Chuan took offense at the insult. Your eyes must be failing you. Have you ever seen a wild man with my looks? Lin Yueming's gaze darkened with killing intent. I don't care who you are. You've witnessed my business here, so you will not leave this place alive. A Bloodcat assassin let out a feral yowl and pounced toward Jiang Chuan, moving so fast it left only a faint motion blur in the air. Jiang Chuan did not even bother to look directly at the creature, throwing out a casual fist forward. A dull, sickening crack echoed as his fist connected with the Bloodcat's chest. The beast was sent flying backward like a broken kite, crashing through 4 large tree trunks before slamming its body into the trunk of a 5th tree. It twitched once, then fell completely motionless. The 7 remaining Bloodcats bristled instantly, arching their backs and hissing threateningly. Lin Yueming's eyes widened in pure shock. A single punch had killed one bloodcat outright. While bloodcats did not excel in raw physical defense, the assassins he summoned were all fourth-order combatants, far too durable to be felled with a casual blow. Just who was this mysterious figure before him? Jiang Chuan shook the blood off his fists and stared blankly at the 7 remaining bloodcat assassins. These feline humanoid creatures hunched their backs, for standing on end as they let out menacing hisses. Yet none dared charge forward again. Lin Yueming's face turned livid as his mind raced frantically. One punch to obliterate a 4th-tier bloodcat assassin? Power of this caliber meant he was at minimum a 6th-tier powerhouse. This wild-looking man exuded no aura typical of combat professions, yet wielded strength matching a 6th-tier expert. Just what was his origin? Friend. Lin Yueming forced a smile, his harsh tones softening into a negotiable drawl. I have no idea who you are, but this conflict has nothing to do with you. Name your price, and I'll pay you to pretend you never saw a thing. Jiang Chuan glanced at him, then turned his gaze towards Su Yining. Desperation faded from Su Yining's eyes, replaced by a flicker of hope. She choked back tears and spoke urgently. Senior, this man colludes with alien races and slaughters his own human kin. He is a disgrace to humanity. I beg you to strike him down and rid our people of this scourge. Jiang Chuan mulled over her words. Sounds exactly like a traitor to one's own people. He swiveled back to Lin Yueming, his gaze cold and detached, as if watching a corpse. You want me to name a price? Jiang Chuan cracked a grim grin. Very well. Put a value on your own life. How much do you reckon your existence is worth? Lin Yueming's smile froze solid on his face. You would refuse a kind offer and force a brutal reckoning. He lurched backward and barked an order. Kill him. The 7 bloodcat assassins sprang into action at once, abandoning foolish frontal assaults. They moved with eerie coordination to surround Jiang Chuan and strike from every direction. Speed was their greatest asset, but Jiang Chuan was far swifter. A thunderous boom cratered the ground beneath his feet, and his figure vanished from his original spot in an instant. When he reappeared, his fist slammed directly into the skull of one bloodcat assassin. A single blow burst the creature's head open like a ripe watermelon. Jiang Chuan blurred across the space once more. He snatched the tail of another bloodcat that had scrambled up a tree to launch an aerial ambush, yanked it violently downward, and slammed its body hard against the ground, leaving the creature dazed and disoriented. Before it could recover, Jiang Chuan drove his boot straight into its skull without hesitation. Brutal. Ruthless. The 5 surviving bloodcats froze mid-motion, their pupils narrowed to thin slits, and their tails tucked tight between their legs. As 4th-tier elite warriors within the bloodcat clan, they were seasoned fighters. Yet against this bare-chested stranger, they did not even possess the right to retaliate. A shrill yowl echoed out, and the 4 remaining assassins spun around to flee in separate directions. Jiang Chuan made no move to chase them. He curled his fingers inward, and an ornate golden longbow materialized in his grasp out of thin air. Think you can run? Let us see if your legs outpace my arrows. Whoosh! An arrow sliced through the air with a shrill, tearing whistle, piercing clean through the chest of one fleeing bloodcat. The iron projectile carried enough residual force to pin a thick tree trunk solidly to the earth. 3rd target eliminated. 4th target eliminated. 5th target eliminated. No matter how far they ran within his line of sight, none could escape the unerring tracking of his arrows. All 5 fleeing assassins were slain outright. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the gurgling flow of the river and the weak groans of the young man who had lost his arm. Lin Yueming's complexion drained to an ashen white. He stared at the littered corpses of the bloodcats, then at Jiang Chuan standing amid the bodies, soaked in blood and radiating the domineering aura of a demonic overlord. His mouth gaped open, only to let out garbled, unintelligible sounds. You cannot kill me." His voice trembled violently. "My father is Lin Kanglin, patriarch of the Lin clan in Tianke City and a 7th-tier powerhouse. If you slay me, the Lin clan will hunt you to the ends of the world." Jiang Chuan strode toward him slowly, each heavy step pressing down on Lin Yueming's heart like a weight. A 7th-tier expert? Impressive credentials. You finally understand the gravity of your situation. Lin Yueming latched onto this last lifeline and raised his voice sharply. "Leave right now, and I will overlook everything that has happened. Lay a single finger on me, and you will face irreversible ruin." His threat died unfinished. Jiang Chuan flicked a small stone with his fingertip, the projectile severing Lin Yueming's entire right hand clean off. A blood-curdling scream tore from Lin Yueming's throat. He crumpled to his knees, clutching his bleeding stump, wailing loudly in agony. And then what? Jiang Chuan asked in an impassive tone. Tears and snot streamed down Lin Yueming's face as he completely broke down, sobbing hysterically. What do you want from me? Spare my life. I will hand over anything you demand. Jiang Chuan ignored his pleas and nodded towards Su Yining. Do you want to finish this? Su Yining tightened her grip on her short sword, glancing at the wailing Lin Yueming. Tears welled up uncontrollably in her eyes. She drew a deep breath and walked steadily toward him. Su Yining, you cannot kill me. We studied side by side at the academy. Lin Yueming scrambled backward frantically, dragging a long trail through the mud with his hips. The academy instructors will investigate this murder, and you will face severe punishment. Su Yining did not halt her advance. She stopped directly before him and lifted her dagger, her arms shaking violently from roiling grief and rage. This blade strikes for Chun Yufei and every fellow student you murdered in cold blood. Squelch. The dagger sank deep into Lin Yueming's back. His eyes widened in shock, a muffled gurgle escaping his throat. Before his body went limp and collapsed into a pool of blood, motionless forever. Complete quiet descended upon the riverbank clearing, with nothing but the rustle of reeds in the wind and the constant murmur of the river current to fill the space. Su Yining tossed her dagger onto the ground, silent tears streaking down her cheeks as she fought to steady her voice. Thank you, senior. Jiang Chuan waved off her gratitude. Go check on your companion quickly. Snapping out of her stupor, Su Yining rushed over to tend to Huang Yi's injuries. Jiang Chuan busied himself as well, patting down every bloodcat corpse scattered across the ground. Extraction successful. Agility plus 20. Extraction successful. Agility plus 20. 8 bloodcat assassins granted him a total of 160 agility points, a solid boost to his stats. Jiang Chuan then walked over to Lin Yueming's lifeless body. Alien corpses yielded extractable resources. But what about human beings? He shot a quick glance at Su Yining, who was frantically stabilizing Huang Yi's bleeding wound. Pressing his palm against Lin Yueming's corpse, golden light flickered as his innate ability activated silently. Detectable talent acquired. Oath of the Sovereign. Initiate absorption immediately. Oath of the Sovereign grade A1 star. Form a binding contract with any designated target. Upon contract formation, the caster gains full access to the target's attribute bonuses and innate talents, and may share their own stat buffs with the bound individual. Current available contract slots, 0/1. Jiang Chuan raised an eyebrow in surprise. Who knew such an overpowered talent existed in the Source Realm? He paused to ponder why this ability was merely ranked grade A despite its formidable effects. Though powerful, the talent granted no direct combat enhancements. Additionally, the contract reduced the bound party to a loyal subordinate, a fate few high-ranking professional awakeners would ever accept willingly. Most users could only bind weaker alien creatures at best, limiting the talent's practical strength and keeping it firmly within grade A thresholds, far below S-rank classification. In Jiang Chuan's hands, however, the skill's potential was boundless. He had no need to leech others' attributes to strengthen himself, yet this talent let him craft utterly devoted, powerful subordinates who could serve countless useful purposes. Excuse me. A hoarse voice sounded from behind him. Jiang Chuan fully absorbed the talent in an instant and turned around with a casual, unassuming expression. Su Yining stood a short distance away, tear tracks still visible on her face, yet her demeanor far calmer than moments prior. She bowed deeply toward him. I truly owe you my life, senior. I would not have survived this ordeal without your intervention. It was nothing out of the ordinary. Jiang Chuan gestured dismissively, eyeing the other corpses on the ground as an idea surfaced. Would you need assistance handling these remains? Pardon. Su Yining blinked in surprise and hurried to decline. There is no need to trouble you with such grim work. Before she could finish her sentence, Jiang Chuan had already knelt beside the first corpse. Warm gratitude welled up within Su Yining, making Jiang Chuan's figure appear taller and nobler in her eyes. Jiang Chuan paid no mind to her emotional reaction. He placed his palm flat against the cadaver and activated universal extraction. Extraction successful. Obtain talent. Iron body grade C. Iron body grade C 1 star. Mitigate 35 of incoming physical damage, plus 25 resistance against magical and ranged attacks. A faint metallic sheen swept across Jiang Chuan's skin. He pressed a hand to his arm, immediately sensing his flesh had grown far tougher and more resilient. Not a bad haul. Securing a grade C talent so effortlessly was a pleasant surprise. Jiang Chuan reflected on what he had learned so far about his extraction ability. He had tested it on 3 categories of objects: equipment, alien life forms, and human beings. Equipment only provided raw attribute points. Alien creatures likewise granted stat increases, with rare powerful alpha specimens occasionally dropping talents. Humans were uniquely different. Every professional awakener's body guaranteed a talent drop upon death, without exception. He hurried to the second corpse. Extraction successful. Obtain talent. Rapid regeneration grade C. Rapid regeneration grade C 1 star. Greatly accelerates natural wound healing and amplifies all healing effects you cast by 30. Third corpse. Extraction successful. Obtain talent. Spell proficiency grade C. Spell proficiency grade C 1 star. Reduce mana consumption for all spells by 35 and lower the barrier to comprehending advanced magical truths. Fourth corpse. Extraction successful. Obtain talent. Power amplification grade C. Power amplification grade C 1 star. Boost your base strength attribute by an additional 25, with a 50 bonus for all strength-based ability checks. The pattern was undeniable, shocking Jiang Chuan to his core. Including Lin Yueming's body, 5 human professional awakeners lay dead here. He had gained 1 grade A talent alongside 4 grade C talents. 5 abilities in total from flawless 100 extraction odds. An ordinary awakened person was only ever blessed with a single innate talent for their entire lifetime. Jiang Chuan now possessed 7 distinct talents within his body. What was more, his physical constitution showed no signs of reaching a saturation point, meaning he could keep absorbing talents endlessly. Could this be the true, hidden function of universal extraction? To consume the talents of humanity as a whole and forge an ultimate being housing innumerable abilities within a single vessel? A chilling thought took root in Jiang Chuan's mind. He composed himself after a moment and gathered all the human corpses into a single pile to keep up the pretense of helping Su Yining deal with the dead. He then walked over to where Su Yining knelt beside Huang Yi's body. She was fumbling clumsily to bandage the severe wound on his severed forearm. Let me examine his condition. Jiang Chuan stepped forward to inspect Huang Yi's injuries. The young man's entire right forearm had been torn off at the elbow, leaving mangled, blood-soaked tissue exposed. Though Su Yining had tightly bound his upper arm to stem bleeding, he had already lost a catastrophic volume of blood. His skin was as pale as parchment, his lips tinged blue, and his pupils beginning to dilate with the onset of fatal blood loss. Jiang Chuan frowned. Though he had just absorbed the rapid regeneration talent, he possessed no actual healing spells. The talent only strengthened the potency of existing healing magic he cast. It did not grant him curative abilities out of nowhere. Without potent medicinal elixirs, Huang Yi was beyond saving. Su Yining lifted her head, her eyes swollen and red with weeping, clinging to the last shred of hope she had left. Senior, will he pull through? Jiang Chuan fell silent for 2 heartbeats before shaking his head slowly. Su Yining's head drooped down in despair. This is all my fault. Do not wallow in self-blame right now. Jiang Chuan cut through her remorse and posed his questions. Who exactly are the Lin clan and Lin Yueming? Where did you and your group originate from? Su Yining wiped her tears hastily. Her voice still trembled with sorrow, yet her focus shifted away from her grief. The Lin clan is a prominent noble household within Tianke City. One of their ancestors once served as a heavenly general within the Heavenly Pavilion, humanity's supreme governing body. Though that ancestor perished ages ago, multiple 7th-tier experts still anchor the clan's power, granting the Lin clan immense influence across all of Tianke City. We are students from Star Crown Academy in Tianke City. Our group was tasked with traveling to Tianyuan City to escort this year's incoming academy freshmen. None of us anticipated Lin Yueming's treachery. He colluded with alien forces and ambushed our party mid-journey. She did not need to elaborate further. Jiang Chuan had witnessed the massacre firsthand. 7 companions had set out on the mission, and only Su Yining remained alive. Tianke City served as humanity's capital, while the Heavenly Pavilion stood as humanity's highest seat of authority. 12 active heavenly generals plus 1 supreme marshal governed the collective fate of the human race. For the Lin clan to boast a former heavenly general within its bloodline spoke volumes about their formidable standing. Is Star Crown Academy humanity's top-tier higher learning institution? Jiang Chuan asked. Yes. Su Yining nodded faintly. Humans awaken their innate talents at 16 years of age, after which they may apply for enrollment at advanced academies for further cultivation training. This opportunity was extraordinarily scarce, virtually unattainable for anyone possessing only grade C or lower professional rankings. No one had ever explained this to Jiang Chuan before. Much like failed college applicants knowing prestigious elite universities exist, yet having no feasible path to attend them through normal channels. In the source realm, admission to such academies was infinitely more competitive. Only 3 academies of Star Crown's caliber existed for the entire human population. Curiosity piqued, Jiang Chuan pressed on. How many freshmen is Tianyuan City sending this year? I wonder if a girl named Ling Aoshuang is among them. Su Yining thought carefully before shaking her head. Tianyuan City only has 5 incoming freshmen this year, and Ling Aoshuang is not listed on the roster. Jiang Chuan looked confused. How is that possible? Ling Aoshuang bore an S-grade talent and ranked first in this year's awakening assessments across Tianyuan City. Surely an S-grade talent easily meets your academy's entry requirements. Su Yining looked equally puzzled. An S-grade talent? No official report from Tianyuan City documented any such person. Star Crown Academy offers special recruitment privileges for all S-grade awakeners. These students are exempt from city quota limits and receive full tuition waivers. I myself enrolled via this special recruitment program. Could she have voluntarily declined her admission offer? Jiang Chuan knitted his brows. It seemed highly unlikely Ling Aoshuang would abandon a spot at Star Crown Academy to join the Dark Moon Combat Regiment. The academy had cultivated numerous heavenly generals, with a sitting heavenly general personally holding the position of academy principal. Its standing dwarfed any combat regiment by a wide margin. No logical reason existed for Ling Aoshuang to make such a choice, unless hidden circumstances he knew nothing of were at play. After dwelling on the matter for a moment, Jiang Chuan let out a quiet chuckle. Ling Aoshuang's personal choices were none of his concern. They had exchanged barely a handful of words, giving him no right to meddle in her future path. You mentioned each city submits its own freshman roster before final enrollment confirmation, meaning revisions can be made before the list is finalized? Jiang Chuan queried. That is correct. Su Yining confirmed. Last-minute changes are common each year due to accidents and unforeseen incidents. Jiang Chuan's spirits lifted instantly. Tianyuan City was a minor settlement with scarcely any high-level secret realms. If he could claim one of the 5 academy slots allocated to the city and enroll in Star Crown Academy, his growth prospects would far surpass anything he could achieve lingering in this area. Securing this position would prove no simple task, however. Each city's enrollment quotas were tangled with layers of vested interests and political dealings that would require careful, long-term planning to navigate. Huang Yi's body had already gone cold. Jiang Chuan lifted his corpse and placed it alongside the other fallen students, activating his extraction ability once more. Extraction successful. Obtain talent. Critical strike, grade B. Critical strike, grade B 1 star. Your attacks guarantee a critical hit upon striking an enemy's vital weak point, dealing a base 200 critical damage multiplier. This talent was incredibly valuable. Paired with the unerring hit effect of his bow ability E, he could reliably land guaranteed critical strikes with every attack. Midway through arranging the corpses, Jiang Chuan spoke up casually. What is your innate talent, if you do not mind telling me? I am merely curious, and you are free to withhold the information. Su Yining pressed her lips together briefly before answering. My talent is Psychic Blast, ranked S grade. Jiang Chuan raised an eyebrow. That sounds remarkably powerful. His comment was not empty flattery. All mental and psychic-type talents were inherently superior in this world, as methods to defend against psychic assaults were extremely rare within the source realm. A well-documented historical case detailed a 6th-tier psychic expert who traded fatal blows with an 8th-tier alien monarch in open combat. Following this event, humanity's federal government universally elevated the official rating of all psychic abilities. Su Yining's gaze fell to the ground despondently. My mastery over this talent remains underdeveloped. Had I honed its power further, Lin Yueming would never have gotten the upper hand against our group. Jiang Chuan said nothing in response. He could distract her from her grief temporarily, but she would have to process this trauma and heal on her own in time. He gathered piles of dry firewood and stacked the corpses of the several victims on top. Does anyone have a fire starter? He asked, turning around. Su Yining's tone was heavy with sorrow. Senior, can't we bury them instead? I plan to inform their families once we get back. At the very least, their loved ones would have bodies to lay to rest. Wild beasts possess an acute sense of smell, Jiang Chuan replied. No matter how deep you dig the graves, scavengers will dig the bodies back up. Cremation is the only reliable option. Sniffling softly at his words, Su Yining pulled out her fire ignition kit. Let me do it. The dry kindling caught fire effortlessly. Flames surged upward, gradually swallowing the lifeless forms before them. Suppressed grief crashed over Su Yinyin all at once. Drained mentally and physically, her balance wavered. She stumbled forward and instinctively grabbed hold of Jiang Chuan's arm to steady herself. That single touch drained the color from her face in the blink of an eye, her pale skin turning ashen white. At the exact same moment, a system notification materialized unbidden in Jiang Chuan's field of vision. Triggered automatically by his innate ability rather than any conscious command, the universal extraction skill scanned the nearby figure for extractable properties the instant the target drew near enough. Detectable talent available for extraction. Mental Perception S rank. Mental Perception S rank 1 star. Physical contact lets the user pick up intense emotions and subconscious thoughts emanating from a target. The longer physical contact is maintained, the clearer and more detailed the perceived information becomes. Silence blanketed the clearing, broken only by the sharp crackle and pop of the burning timber. Jiang Chuan sank into quiet contemplation, while Su Yinyin stood rigid and motionless, terrified that any unnatural movement might anger the man beside her. Jiang Chuan suddenly comprehended the meaning behind Su Yinin's earlier remark. Had her talent been fully awakened and refined, Lin Yueming would never have carried out his murderous scheme. If her perceptual senses had been just a little sharper, she would have sensed Lin Yueming's malicious intentions ahead of time and prevented the attack entirely. After a long stretch of quiet, Jiang Chuan let out a weary sigh. You saw everything, didn't you? Su Yinyin jolted her head up as if burned by an electric current, her lips trembling uncontrollably. No, Senior, I didn't see a single thing at all. You are lying. Jiang Chuan took one step forward. He held no aggressive posture, yet Su Yinyin felt an overwhelming weight bearing down on her, akin to a towering mountain bearing down. She stumbled backward until her spine slammed hard against a tree trunk, trapped with nowhere left to retreat. Jiang Chuan stared straight at her with an impassive expression. Su Yinyin finally crumpled under the pressure. Why was misfortune always finding her? She had barely escaped one deadly threat only to walk straight into another perilous predicament. Her voice trembled with pleading desperation. Senior, I know you are a good person and would never hurt an innocent soul. I swear upon the Source Realm itself, I will never utter a word of your secret to anyone, not a single syllable. The Source Realm was bound by spiritual will. Oaths sworn in its name carried the most binding magical restraint for all professional ability wielders in this world. Even so, Jiang Chuan could not allow a person privy to his deepest secrets to wander free. He had no way of knowing exactly how much information Su Yinyin had witnessed. His identity as a transmigrator, his rule-defying talent, and his unparalleled standing atop all races were truths that would bring catastrophic destruction down upon him, if exposed. He could not afford to gamble with his life. A deep crimson glow coalesced in Jiang Chuan's palm. Since you have uncovered my secrets, you must understand I cannot let you leave this place alive. That said, I am no mindless killer who slaughters the guiltless without cause. I will offer you two choices. First, enter into a binding soul contract with me. I swear I will not interfere excessively with your daily life. When necessary, I can even share a portion of my power with you. You have witnessed my strength firsthand. It dwarfs the petty power Lin Yueming wields by an immeasurable margin. Jiang Chuan fell silent. The grim fate tied to the second option was already plain for Su Yinyin to grasp without him spelling it out. Senior, Su Yinyin gazed up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes, her delicate features framed in a vulnerable, pitiful look. Seizing the split second when Jiang Chuan's guard lapsed, she spun on her heel and fled for her life. Jiang Chuan could have halted her flight instantly, yet he held back. He let her sprint a full 100 meters away before leisurely stepping into pursuit. It seems you have already made your decision.